Greetings, everybody. My name is Warmech Gaming, and I'm here today to present to you the fourth installment of the tutorial for Any Percent, the Any Percent speedrun of Plants vs. Zombies, specifically the PC Game of the Year version available on Steam. This is a project that I started probably about 2 years ago and have done an installment about every 6 months since then. And I'm very excited about this latest installment. We've really come together as a community. I've improved my personal best by about 5 or 6 minutes since the last time. And as a result, hopefully have at least 5 or 6 minutes worth of improvements that could potentially get your time as low as the 3-hour, 25-minute mark, give or take. And we'll see exactly how well I did today. Just a bit of disclosure, this is a pre-recorded run. I recorded this 2 days ago offline, and I'm just doing a voiceover of the video recording that I have here. So I know what's going to happen. I've prepared some notes on what's going to happen, but I still hope, but I don't plan on spoiling the result until the very end. So hope you'll stick around for the whole time and that you learn a little bit more about Plants vs. Zombies as we go. So without any further ado, we will begin recording right now. So first thing, it does need to start from a fresh file. I called this one tutorial, and timing actually starts not when we click the start adventure mode, but rather when we plant our first plant. That's just sort of in the history of kind of gaining control of the character like they had a lot of times. It actually is possible, we learned very recently, to skip this intro scene, this intro cutscene. You can do that by basically creating a new file, then loading a different file, loading a game, and then going back into this. But because it doesn't actually help and it doesn't actually save any real time either, there's no reason to do that. But that's an interesting tidbit. So very first thing is, prepare it, get ready to start your timer, and here we go. And we'll first begin to talk about the first bit of RNG in the game, and that's the sun production RNG. So the sun basically falls at relatively even intervals, but there can be a large gap, as much as a couple of seconds, from when the very first sunflower falls from the sky, and then I believe they fall in even intervals of like 7 seconds or something like that thereafter. And the next bit of RNG that actually makes 1-1 a fairly RNG dependent level is the zombie's move speed. You can see that, for example, this zombie that's on screen here is much slower than the first two zombies that appeared. So what we really want is to kind of continuously maximize our firepower. We can actually see we did a pretty good job of the pea shooters basically never being idle, other than a little bit of a gap between the second and third zombies, as you can see. I personally like to split each level right when you hear the little bass note at the end of the jingle, but there's no perfectly community agreed upon time, so it's really up to you personally. You don't even need to use a timer or need to use splits, but it can be very helpful so that you can sort of judge, what levels are good, what strategies are good, and which ones aren't, kind of on a level by level basis. So that's great. Welcome, by the way, those of you in chat. I'll be doing some chat interaction today, though not quite as much as I normally do, just to sort of, again, keep the tutorial flowing and so forth. Next bit of RNG that I'd like to talk about is the sunflower RNG. So that sort of has two phases. The first is the amount of time that it takes a sunflower to produce its first bit of sun, and that actually varies by a huge amount. It's something like it can be anywhere from 3 seconds to 12 seconds after you plant it. So that's actually a massive difference. So again, you get a relatively even amount of sun falling from the sky, but there can be a pretty huge amount of difference in terms of sort of when that sunflower produces its first sun. And then it produces sun in even intervals of, I believe, between like 24.5 and 25.5 seconds or something pretty close to that. And you'll actually see that we employ a bit of an interesting strategy here to begin 1-2, namely that we let the first zombie go. And the reason we do that is because we want that zombie to hit the lawnmower right as this fourth wave appears. And you can actually see I did a very good job. I actually stalled it using a sunflower at the end. end. That's not something that you have to do, but something that you can do based on how fast or slow the particular zombie is. So it's a good idea to try to get a feel for the zombie speed to sort of see, all right, when do you need to slow it down, where, and what does that look like? And then the rest of the level is basically trying to get up to 6 sunflowers and 7 pea shooters as quickly as you can. This final wave has 5 zombies, and so we put the pea shooter wherever the first zombie appears, because that's the row that's the most likely to get the 3 zombies versus the 2, although you can actually get a 4-1 split as well. I put a sunflower there just to help protect that pea shooter a little bit, because a lot of those zombies looked very fast. You might be wondering what we would do if the zombie appeared in the first row that had all of our sunflowers, and the answer, of course, is just you put down a pea shooter after your 4th sunflower, and then you don't plant any more sunflowers for the rest of the level. You actually tend to get about an even time, give or take a little bit, although if you want a really good time, you really have to make use of the lawnmowers, as you saw there. That was actually an excellent time, probably the 2nd or 3rd best time I've ever gotten in 1-2, so that was very good. As you can see at the beginning of 1-3, we don't quite stack the deck quite as much, because basically we almost always need at least 1 sunflower to stall the zombie. There's almost no circumstances where the zombie's going to be slow enough, although if you get truly the minimum zombie speed, you can. And just by the look of this one, I can tell that this zombie is a little bit slower than average. Not super slow, so I'm hoping to be able to get away with just using the 1 sunflower to slow him down, but hopefully that's not... that was too much. So so there we go. And again, once the second zombie appears, basically we have the same strategy that we're going to use here. And just sort of as a little bit of history, we actually used to sort of, plant the pea shooters right as the zombies were appearing. But you have to keep in mind that using the sunflowers can really be to your benefit. And I actually decided to stall him out just a little bit longer. I actually didn't have to do that, but I knew it was going to be extremely close, and I really wanted to get the value of being able to get that conehead. You can see here I have 150 sun, and blow up that conehead. Your 5th wave will always be a conehead. That's something important to keep in mind. And the 6th wave has a 50-50 chance of either being a conehead or 2 regular zombies. We'll talk a little bit more about why that is just a little bit later in the run, but that's basically what we get. Now we know that there's a chance that there's going to be another zombie in the bottom row, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. But I actually got pretty good luck here. The zombies died with a pretty uniform amount of speed. I have good sun production here, so I can get a 3rd pea shooter out, clear out this bucket head, and right around the time for the final wave, lo and behold, we have the cherry bomb back. So this level definitely introduces a little bit more variation in terms of, like, what do you do if you get coneheads? What do you do if you get regular zombies? But, basically the same general type of strategy should apply. Once you see there's 6 zombies, once you see the beginning of the 6th zombie start to appear on screen, that's when you know that you can safely time your cherry bomb. And the cherry has a nice 3x3 radius, so you should always be able to kill all the zombies with the cherry bomb, unless you really mess up and misplay it in the very top or the very bottom row. Yep, so basically going back to what we were talking about, another bit of RNG that the game introduces is what we call basically the wave value RNG. So what you may notice even in casual play is that the first wave will always have just 1 regular zombie. The second wave will also have just 1 regular zombie, and the third wave will also have just 1 regular zombie. And that's because basically a regular zombie has it's a sort of value that's in the back of the game, but it basically has a value of 1, and a regular zombie has a value of 1, and those waves each have a value of 1. So the game says, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you regular zombies on those first 3 waves, because those waves have a value of 1. Now, starting with the 4th wave, that moves up to a value of 2. And so certain zombies, certain stronger zombies, have a value of 2, like coneheads, newspaper zombies. I'm sure there's another one that I'm probably forgetting about. But again, those zombies have a value of 2. And so there's a 50-50 chance that you'll either get 2 regular zombies, i.e. that also has a value of 2, or you'll get 1 conehead that has a value of 2. So either way, the waves always basically have what the game considers equal strength, but that can come in the form of either a conehead, like we see right here, or 2 regular zombies, which I believe we're going to see. No, we did get a Conehead right here. And then it moves along from there. So for the next 3 waves, i.e. waves 4, 5, and 6, you're going to have either Conehead or 2 regular zombies. Then for the next 3 waves, you either get 3 regular zombies or a Conehead and a regular zombie, or a newspaper and a regular zombie, i.e. something that gets you up to a value of 3, and so forth and so on. And so it's not really important that you memorize exactly what the values are going to be, but rather you should memorize, I'm on wave 4, I therefore know my next wave is either going to be, you can see I'm on wave 7 right here, so I knew that this was either going to be a Conehead or 2 regular zombies, or sorry, 3 regular zombies to get to that value of 3. And then again, the game kind of moves up incrementally from there until you get to the huge waves where the value basically like explodes to a much bigger number and kind of moves forward from there. Again, you can see that very first zombie that we let go and that we stalled out with a walnut, we were able to make use of right here. You can see I actually got a little bit of funny RNG. It's very rare for 2 zombies to appear in the same row, which is what we got right there. But when you use a lawnmower, it increases the chances of that happening. Because the game was probably, they wanted to throw a zombie in wave 2, and then it said, oh, wave 2 we can't because we just had a lawnmower, so therefore let's put it in some other wave. And you can actually see, again, all of this planning ahead right here is really going to pay off, because by procking this lawnmower in the top row, which we did from one of the earlier waves, we're basically going to force all of these zombies into the bottom row. So that's why you can see that we planted all the sunflowers in the middle and tried to let those top 2 waves go. Or it could have been the bottom 2 waves go, or it could have been the top and the bottom wave go. It's very, very important that, again, as you become more advanced in the game, that you try to do that, because using those lawnmowers, you saw not only did we get value out of the actual lawnmower itself, but it helped to manipulate the final wave so that we condensed it just to 3 rows, and we're able to kill that final wave instantly just using a cherry. It's very, very important that you try to do that. Sometimes you get a little bit unlucky and you're only able to, force them down just to 4 rows, which is still good. It's still better than normal, but that's what you get. And you'll see that we actually really try to do that in a lot more of the levels, including this level right here, where again, we kind of move along. This is an interesting level that you have basically a 15% chance of getting an Explode-A-Nut, and then 85% of chance of getting a regular walnut. And where the walnuts bounce is a little bit random, in that if you roll it in the middle, there's a 50-50 chance that it'll bounce up and down. If you put it in the top or the bottom row, there's a 100% chance that it'll bounce downward. Of course, it doesn't have anywhere to go. But if you do it in wave 2 and 4, there's a slightly better chance that it'll bounce down rather than if you put it in row 2, or it'll bounce up if you put it in row 4. So again, you see me really making use of the same kind of lawnmower manipulation that we had in order to prep this final wave. I was really hoping for an Explode-A-Nut here, and you can see I did get one, and that actually did help this time. It did help me at least get a reasonable time. If I'd gotten it 2 or 3 waves, or 2 or 3 walnuts sooner, I would have gotten it in an excellent time on the level. But again, you can really see that whole setup was to condense the final wave and then use an Explode-A-Nut, which is sort of our alternative to the cherry there, and have it there. Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. So I mean lane, but row, lane, whatever it is. So yeah, thank you for that correction. So again, the reason that we plant these sunflowers in the middle to begin these levels is because I'm already thinking ahead to the final wave, where I would love to be able to manipulate it so that the lawnmowers have blocked off zombies from appearing in that final wave already. Now again, if I had gotten the first zombie in the middle lane or the middle row, I would have used the potato mine to kill it. And the rule of thumb for the potato mine is it has to be if the zombie is 2 full squares away from the potato mine when it's planted, then the potato mine will almost always arm in time in order to kill that zombie. But you can see here that I plant them in the front rows. I was actually a little bit worried that I planted this one a little bit too late. That's why I planted it in the 8th column. And again, we use the walnuts to stall out the zombies so that I can, now that we have the shovel, I can dig it up a little bit later and get a little bit more value from from that. So you can see in hindsight, I probably should have been more aggressive and put that potato mine in the 9th column. So was that a slight mistake? Yes, but I was just playing a little bit conservatively, so I maybe lost about 5 seconds there compared to what truly could have been my best time. Now again, I have a vaulter coming here, and now we're going to introduce what we call the 50% rule. And this is probably the most important rule of PvZ speedrunning that exists. It's basically a mechanic that says if you do 50% of the current wave's hit points, then the next wave will appear. It's guaranteed to appear. And if you do less, the actual value, believe it or not, I should have probably stalled that guy out a little bit longer as well. If you do less than 50%, the actual value, it picks a random number between 35% of the zombie's hit points and 50%, but we know that if you do 50% of the current wave's total hit points, then the next wave will appear. So you can see, now that I've gotten this guy almost dead, we're guaranteed to get the next wave. Which is exactly what happened here. Again, you can see it's definitely okay to use sunflowers to get these guys to slow them down by forcing the vaulters to jump a little bit. I did get more vaulters than average, so as a result, I'm going to have a little bit of a slower time than I was expecting, but I think that'll be okay. And the one exception to the 50% rule, the 2 exceptions, I guess, are one on the 9th wave or 19th waves or 29th waves. You have to do 100% of the zombies' hit points. That's the wave before the huge waves. There's 10 waves per huge wave, including the huge wave itself. Again, you can see I manipulated the lawnmower there, and I actually got relatively lucky here. I knew there was going to be zombies that appeared in that top row. That's why I put the potato mine out in advance of the final wave appearing, and you can see I was able to make pretty short work of the final wave. I did lose a little bit of time compared to my prior personal best, just because we got three vaulters, which is more than you would normally expect for that one. So again, a lot of this game it really is featured around that 50% rule. It's very, very, very important. So again, I guess going a little bit more meta for a second, the reason that you can speedrun Plants vs. Zombies to begin with is single-handedly really because of this 50% rule, as well as like how well you perform on the final waves. So the entire game is basically a trade-off between how much do I focus on my economy, i.e. like my sun production and things like that, versus how much do I focus on my long-term damage output potential, like planting pea shooters and things like that, versus how much do I focus on my one-time damage output, like using instants, like the cherries, the chompers, the potato mines, and things like that too. So what makes this a truly brilliant speed game, and I'm not being facetious when I say that, is that whole trade-off. So like you can see, like even talking about like, I'm pausing the video because this is extremely important. Like the whole trade-off that we did here was we let the first wave go. We basically sacrificed, if you don't do the 50% rule, then the game will automatically spawn the next wave, a random number between 25 and 31 seconds after that. So basically, I made the decision, most of the time you're better off letting that first wave go, focusing on your economy, then planting a pea shooter for the second wave and possibly the third wave, while at the same time preparing these instants in some of the other rows so that you can make these future waves just a little bit faster. And you can see like the beginning of 1.7 is like a perfect example of how that works out just perfectly. I planted my sunflowers right away. I let the first zombie go, planting the potato mine in the first row. Then the second zombie appeared. I was all the while continuously planting sunflowers. I planted a pea shooter and got the potato mine out fast enough such that when this third wave appeared, I was able to kill the zombie basically instantly. If I hadn't done all of that correctly, I then would have needed to spend 100 sun to plant another pea shooter, and it would have cost me 15 to 20 seconds just on this one wave alone to get the damage that I needed to satisfy the 50% rule. So again, sorry to pause the video, and I know that a lot of you kind of know this already, but it's very, very, very important to understand that. It's really the foundation of this entire speedrun. And once again, you can see right in this top row here, this was all a result of our planning ahead. If I hadn't done that correctly, these waves would have taken so much longer. So you can see again what I'm doing here. I know that by planting just this one pea shooter, I'm going to be able to satisfy the 50% rule by killing this one zombie. And in fact, I plant another pea shooter just to get that done a little bit faster. And I plant a potato mine, knowing that if I get another zombie in this top row a little bit later, I'm going to be in pretty good shape. We like to get 15 sunflowers out on some of these 2 flag levels if possible. Usually the rule of thumb is at least 10 sunflowers if it's a 1 flag level, at least 15 sunflowers if it's a 2 flag level, and at least 20 sunflowers if it's a 3 flag level, although you see there's a couple of exceptions to that you can sort of you can sort of jot down using some notes and things like that. So you can see, again, as a result of the decision that we made 3 waves ago to let this zombie go, I'm now going to be able to kill this conehead in a much, much faster time than I otherwise would have been able to. So again, I a lot of times will use the analogy of a real-time strategy. And so the reason I cherried that right there is I knew I was on the 9th wave, so I had to do 100% of that wave's hit points. And luckily, which was really by design, the 2 zombies were forced to be in the middle 2 rows, so I knew by using the cherry bomb right then and there that I would be able to get more value out of that and instantly satisfy what for that wave is the 100% rule. I needed to do all of that wave's hit points, and it would have taken a long time for those pea shooters to kill that conehead by hand. And now I'm going to be able to save this lawnmower for a future wave, which I believe I use. Which I believe I do. So I actually replant this walnut just to make sure that all the zombies are going to be on screen. Again, very important that I do that to make sure that everything works out according to plan. And you can see I got massive value out of that lawnmower and was actually able to satisfy the 50% rule just based on that alone. So truly, like, the first half of 1.7 I think is an excellent example of like how to balance your economy. You can see I got my 15 sunflowers out very quickly. I was able to kill all the waves very quickly and still able to utilize a lot of the lawnmowers to like plan ahead by a couple more waves and keep us going there. You can see, unfortunately, I did get a little bit of bad luck. The reason we don't like coneheads, again, it sort of goes back to that wave value. I had basically a 25% chance of getting 2 coneheads, a little bit of a better chance of getting 1 conehead and 2 regular zombies, and then another probably about 25% chance of getting 4 regular zombies. There's also a little bit of like, I could have gotten some vultures in there too, so the probabilities aren't that much. But the reason that I don't like getting the coneheads is because you could see that 2 of the rows were idols. And again, I really like to compare this game to a real-time strategy game rather than a tower defense game, because like, really, that's what it is. That's what we're doing. We focus a lot on building up our villagers, i.e. our sunflowers, very early, and we don't want any of our plants to be idle for long at all, if possible. And we want to basically balance, like, you have unit counters, right? Like, a good counter to the high hit point zombies are the instants that kill them immediately. A good counter to the low hit point zombies are the pea shooters and stuff that cost a little bit less, but are able to do a little bit more damage over time. So, like, a lot of this game is really about understanding those unit counters. I was very confident that I was going to be able to kill that in time and be able to use that potato mine just a little bit later on in the level. And you can see here what I'm trying to do. I'm already planning ahead for the final wave. I know with almost certainty I'm going to be using the cherry bomb right in the middle here. I have a potato mine right here, and I'm trying to plant as many normal pea shooters as I can in this bottom row to basically kill, so that I have a good solution to every, type of zombie combination that I can get in each of the rows. I got a little bit of bad luck. I had 3 zombies, including 1 conehead appear in that bottom row. But again, this level really, I think, honestly, even compared to my goals, was an excellent example of like how you should try to plan ahead and balance your economy, utilize the lawnmowers, and just always make sure that you're always thinking about, all right, how can I satisfy the 50% rule in this wave while not falling behind and while still making sure that my economy and my sun production is in a good position to be able to, to deal with the zombies in the later waves. And I really wanted to highlight 1-7 because I really feel like, despite not getting great luck, I still managed to get an excellent time because I think every decision that I made in that level was the right one. Maybe with one small exception here or there. But I really think if we wanted to like focus the entire game down to one level, I really feel like 1-7 was really an excellent example of how you can make the most of the plants that you have or the plants that you're taking in order to to make each wave as fast as possible, make those 9th waves very fast, and plan ahead to the final wave to make sure that you're not falling behind. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there's a couple of like glitches / exploits that we take advantage of. I'll be able to talk a little bit more about those later. I would have loved to be able to let this zombie go, but I'm like, I really want to satisfy the 50% rule. So what can I do? What can I do? So again, very, very important to continue planting sun. So what I did was I made sure I had done 50% of that zombie's hit points, then immediately planted a potato mine behind it. This is very advanced stuff that we're talking about here. And is it gonna work? Is it gonna work? I was really hoping it would work. I was frames away from it working. It didn't. So as a result, in order to satisfy the 50% rule, I really had to let this one go, even though I would have loved to wait for a little bit later. But that's again, that's a that's about all we get. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the plushies with me today. It sort of felt like not quite the right circumstance because I'm not like actually doing the splits, but I think that's all right. So again, I knew that potato mine wasn't going to arm in time, but I was able to, again, take care of that as best I could, let this one go, and as you can tell, I'm already very, very prepared for the final wave. Again, kill that zombie immediately with the chompers, kill the conehead using the lawnmower, and then again I'm prepared for whatever row needs a chomper and a cherry. You can see I'm almost gonna have 300 sun exactly. I actually got 3 zombies in the top row, so I'm like, wait a sec, okay, that's just what I'm gonna do there, and luckily only 1 zombie in the bottom row, which was very good. So again, a little bit of bad RNG / the zombies just being a little bit off. Again, I was frames away from like this being an outstanding level, and that one potato mine that got eaten being able to like really create some value for me. But I hope I was able to sort of like explain how to take advantage of an advanced strategy of satisfying the 50% rule, but still letting that zombie go and being able to utilize the lawnmower at a later time in the level that actually saved me a bundle of time. So I think that so again, I really think that was the way to go. 1-9 is a little bit more interesting. We first have availability to the repeater, which is very good because it helps us really take advantage of our space and get a lot of firepower out in a very short period of time. Which again is very good. So wave 1-9, we need a little bit more sun, so we actually go all the way up to about 19 or 20 sunflowers on this level if possible. And again, utilizing the same strategy of, all right, this time we let the first 2 zombies go because we don't have the 100 cost pea shooter in order to deal with the second wave. But by the time the third wave comes along, we're going to have the 2 potato mines ready, and we're going to have 200 sun, all the while never halting on our sunflower production. So again, if you're newer to the speed run, I would say like the first things to pay attention to are like be willing to let the lawnmowers go, you're not like it's really there as a safety mechanism for like very casual or new players. And again, you can see my placement of the potato mine in the 8th column here was very good. I sort of thought that was going to be the way to go. I know I don't need to dig up the walnut right there because I'm going to be able to satisfy the 50% rule with this zombie, so that's good. So again, if you're new, really try never to stop planting sunflowers and be willing to use your lawnmowers to your advantage. And if you're a little bit more advanced, I would say like really try your best to plan ahead as best you can. Like right there, I was like, ooh, I'm really in a tough position here. It's okay to use the cherry. Like, really try to think about, all right, what plants do I have at my disposal? How can I satisfy the 50% rule as quickly as possible? You know, and what do I need to have planned for a couple waves in advance to make them faster. I could have used a chomper here to make this wave a little bit faster, but I was like, you know what? I want to get a little more firepower out. I don't want to slow down my sun production. You know, I really want to be really well prepared for this huge wave. I want to have the chompers back, and so that was why I made that decision. Was it a little bit of a mistake? Maybe. The chomper will always chomp the zombie that's in front, so you actually see right there, I was able to utilize that and get these really high hit point bucket heads out of the way. And this actually sort of segues very nicely into what I wanted to talk about next was, all right, you're talking about this 50% rule, but what are the zombies' hit points? And the answer to that is actually more complicated than you would think. So a normal zombie takes 10 what some call regular P shots in order to be defeated. So you would say, okay, if you hit a regular zombie 5 times, you know, you should satisfy the 50% rule, right? But the actual answer is a little bit more complicated. As you see for 1-9, really using the chompers, you really only need 1 row of repeaters, and then you can utilize chompers and potato mines to satisfy the 50% rule for basically every other wave. So the way the zombies' hit points actually work is that each normal zombie actually has 260 hit points, and each normal P does 20 damage to the zombie. But the reason that it looks like the zombie dies is because after the zombie takes 200 hit points, it loses its head, and then after it's done its little death animation, it loses the remaining 60 hit points that it had before. So in other words, in order to satisfy the 50% rule, you need to do 130 damage, i.e., 6.5, a maximum of 6.5 P shots to the regular zombie in order for the next wave to appear. So again, what that really means is that you need to do a maximum of 7 shots, because the zombies really have 13.5 normal P shots worth of hit points. And basically the way that it works, calculating up from there, is that the Conehead takes 27 normal P shots in order to do, but it also has a little bit, again, 60 of those hidden hit points when its animation dies, so you need to do 15 damage to a Conehead. So it's actually more than twice as hard to kill a Conehead as it is a regular zombie, which is why you see that we're so willing to use things like the chompers and the instants, and you can see there the cherry bombs to kill the Coneheads, is because they have more than twice as many hit points as a regular zombie. And so if you kill a Conehead, you know, you're even more likely to get to that 50% rule faster. And the way that the instants work is that you do not only the amount for the zombie to like lose its head, you get rid of all of its hit points immediately, including that like awkward animation for the zombie to die and for it to lose the rest of its hit points. So what we've realized in sort of more recent times, and what makes this tutorial I think a little bit like the reason that I'm playing better now than I did at the time of my previous tutorial, is that we really understand the value of instants now in a way that we didn't used to before. And we also understand like those like wave values that we were talking about, like, okay, when do you get a chomper versus a Conehead versus a regular zombie? We understand that a lot better than we did before as well. So again, if there's one difference from this tutorial in the last tutorial, it's really that we really understand the value of instants and why it's so important on a wave by wave basis to really try to do all of like whatever it takes to get that wave to fit to 50% of its current hit points, and really just using things like the pea shooters and the repeaters as a backup to sort of like, you know, clean out the trash, right? Clean whatever else survived, and really try to use those instants once you have enough sun in order to keep the next waves going. The very last thing is that there's a minimum of 6 seconds between each wave. So even if you were to kill the wave on the first frame that it appeared, the next wave wouldn't appear until 6 seconds later. And there's actually a 2-second delay between when the 50% rule is satisfied and when the next wave appears as well. So in other words, like, you're better off killing the ideal case would be you satisfy each 50% rule 4 seconds after the wave appears, and then give the next wave 2 more seconds to appear, if that makes sense, because there's always this 6-second minimum to do the damage that you that you need to. So hopefully that makes sense. Alrighty, I've been talking way too much, so gotta keep myself hydrated for all of this. So going on to some of the strategies for 110, what you might see here is that I did not use any of the walnuts. And you might say, well, that's funny, like, it's not that helpful, but, like, why not use them? But what we actually learned since the last time the tutorial was made is that you can actually manipulate a little bit what plants appear in the conveyor belt. And the simple way to explain it is that if you don't want a plant, don't plant it. Or if you do want a plant, use it. So, in other words, because we've left, it's and the more technical answer is, once you have more than 2 of a particular type, that then decreases the probability of that type appearing going forward. You can see here I nicely got 2 cherry bombs right at the very end for the final wave. It's important to make sure that you try to do that. But basically what we try to do is we say, okay, you don't want walnuts, don't plant them. You don't want potato mines, don't plant them. Obviously, you're limited in the actual amount of space on the conveyor belt, so it makes sense to only, like, use 1 or 2, like, only try to manipulate the 1 or 2 worst plants on that particular flag, but, or on that particular conveyor level, but that's what we get. So now moving on to the night levels. So in other words, like, I don't want walnuts, don't plant them, and therefore I was less likely to get walnuts going forward. I guess this was a pre-recorded run, so not cheating. This was done on Tuesday. Whoa. Yep. So yes, this was a pre-recorded run that I just put my camera over. So I know what's going to happen in this run, and I have some notes on what happens in this run, but for the rest of you, you'll all be left in suspense. So the night levels, we basically now are given truly what's one of the most, it's probably an A tier plant if we're looking at it that way, but the puff shroom is unbelievably valuable in that now we can really focus for almost the first half of each night level. We can focus 100% on sun production because we have a plant that does the same amount of damage as a pea shooter for free, and with the same cooldown, and with a very low cooldown, a 7.5 second cooldown, which is extremely valuable. So the only thing that it's limited on is its range, but coincidentally, if you plant a puff shroom in the 7th column, that it will almost always do 10 damage to a regular zombie before that zombie has a chance to eat it. So in other words, it can do it can do enough damage to a regular zombie by only needing to plant 1 of them per row if you plant it in the 7th row or back. Now, obviously, there's some zombies that have more hit points, like the newspaper and the Coneheads. So for those ones, you need to, stack up a couple of puff shrooms. But the puff shroom is extremely valuable, and it's very, very important to plant them basically as far forward as you safely can, while still being able to deal with the rest of them. So you can see the reason I planted the potato mine at the very top there is because I'm almost 100% sure that the cherry bomb is going right in this spot right here, right in this 3x3 area. So I want to put the potato mine in a row that does not have that same kind of value. So now right here I'm looking at this and saying, I could do this, but I actually think what would be more valuable is to use a chomper. I could have also used a regular pea shooter, but again, where the chomper deals the damage more quickly, I'm very, very happy with how I played that final wave. I had basically a chomper in 1 row, potato mine in another row, and a cherry in the final 3 rows. And as a result, every row, no matter how difficult the zombies were there, had something to be able to help me out. So again, just in terms of planning ahead a little bit, I'm already thinking thinking about this final wave, and I'm like, okay, you know, well, the grave spots are a little bit funny, but I know I'm probably going to put a cherry here, here, here. I have these two far forward graves that I'm going to have to sort of figure out how to deal with a little bit. But in terms of, again, one of the updates that we had since the last tutorial, you may notice I took 2 sun-producing plants on this level, and that was in place of the potato mine, which we used to take. So the potato mine is definitely valuable. It definitely helps us, particularly in the first flag and the beginning of the second flag, and then a little bit more for the final wave. It's definitely a helpful plant. But what we found was, if we can get so much sun out at the beginning of this level that we maximize the amount of sun being produced to the level overall, we basically at the end of the level can plant almost non-stop chompers every single level, while still being able to afford the occasional repeater for, you know, to help clean up the coneheads and some other things like that too. So this is a strategy that we tested, and not only did I get an excellent gold, I improved my gold by almost 10 seconds, but we got a new global gold, and almost every single runner, regardless of their play style, saw an effective change from this, meaning that it was again, not just an execution improvement, but this was a strategy improvement that we used to have. This is the first level you can start getting coneheads. I find that 3 is the magic number of puff shrooms to deal with a conehead. You're almost always going to lose one of the puff shrooms. It's inevitable. Again, you can't develop too much emotional attachment to plants in this run. You know, the plants will die. I'm sorry. That's just the way of the world, but that's what we got. So you can see that now I'm really going like all out. I actually got a really bad 50% rule right here. So that was kind of unfortunate. You know, again, I'm really going all out. I actually decided to plant a little bit more, I think, than 20 sunflowers, you know, in order to do this. And I knew that by getting a repeater there and a chomper there, I could, you know, this was wave 9. I had to get all of those zombies dead as fast as I possibly could. And they appeared kind of in a less than ideal row. I honestly maybe could have cherried them. That might have been the better play in hindsight. But so a couple little slight misplays for me here. But again, you know, just trying to get an overall idea. You know, I wouldn't have had the cherry there, and I would have needed to wait forever for that 50% rule. So it's like, you know, was the trade-off good or not? Again, because of all the sun production, look, I was instantly able to get that chomper out and immediately use the chomper against those high hit point bucket heads, which is very, very, very important that you do. The bucket heads take 60 normal P shots to kill. So in other words, they have about 6 times the amount of normal hit points of a regular zombie. So it is absolutely essential that on any level that has a conehead, that you have some sort of instant in order to be able to deal with it and to reduce its hit points or kill it right away. So it's it's very it is very important to do that. Again, you know, Buckethead instant. And again, if you were in a situation where you had 2 graves in the same row, you would want to use a cherry bomb. You can see I could have used the cherry right there, but I also knew I was getting pretty close to the final wave, and he was moving fast enough that I felt confident that the chomper was going to be able to get the job done. You can see I'm sort of, you know, trying to plant a couple of repeaters. Again, really get those 50% rules by you know, using the chompers as fast as I can. Again, I was kind of in a less than ideal circumstance for this 9th wave as well, in that I got a conehead and a buckethead, which was pretty unfortunate for me. So as a result, I that sort of slowed down this 9th wave by a little bit more time. Again, if I'd been planning a little bit better ahead, I maybe could have gotten one more repeater out. I don't know. You know, it's kind of a tough judgment call. But again, I'm sort of planning ahead. I'm almost certain I'm going to use the cherry here or here. I saw the buckethead right there, so I'm like, yep, that's a guaranteed situation. And I knew, again, I had to take care of those zombies, so that is exactly what we did. So a little bit of a slow final wave and a little bit of a slow 9th wave, in addition to the 19th wave situation that I mentioned. So those were a couple of things that sort of held me back from a slightly better time on that level, but still overall a pretty fair one too. And you can see right here, so now's a good time, I think, to talk about the grave RNG, which is yet another RNG factor that sort of we need to incorporate into our decision making. So it looks like the graves are placed randomly, but it's actually not entirely random. So what the game does is on each level, it has a certain number of graves that it knows it's going to have per column. So in other words, on 2-3, you will always have 2 graves in the first column, 1 grave, or sorry, in the 9th column, if we're going left to right, 2 graves in the 9th column, 1 grave in the 8th column, and 1 grave in the 7th column. So you can do the math and figure out what the probability is that I would get 3 graves all in the same row. That's not always something that happens. And again, one of the many non-deterministic aspects to the speedrun that make it a joy to speedrun. But as you can see here, the first couple zombies appeared in that same row that that had the 3 graves, so I was not able to really make the most of those short-range puff shrooms that I had. So already I'm losing about 10 or 15 seconds compared to even if this grave right here had been in any other column, truly, even the first column, I really would have been okay. But it was, it's really like. I got really bad RNG. I placed a potato mine in advance, hoping that I could get the screen door zombie that always here appears on the 6th wave, but instead I got a conehead that appeared on the 5th wave, which is actually okay. That's not that bad. But really, the killer on this level were these 3 graves right here, and the fact that 2 out of the first 3 zombies appeared in that row. And oh yeah, what else? I got a conehead in this row. So again, I can't plant anything right here to do damage to this conehead. So I basically need to sit and just kind of wait around. And you can see how slow this 50% rule was right here. I did get a lot of sun out, which is kind of a small silver lining. But oh yeah, then not only that, even on this next wave right here, I think this is, I can't remember, this is the 8th or the 9th wave, I got yet another regular zombie. Okay, yeah, and then finally here on the 9th wave, I didn't. But you can see I got a ton of zombies, and they were high hit point zombies at an inconvenient time when I didn't have a good method of dealing with them. So all of those things combined were really my problem there. You can see already I'm almost certainly planning to cherry right here, so I wanted to set a potato right here and right here. Also have a fume in the top and the bottom rows, just so I had some sort of solution to those as well. Oh, by the way, 3 coneheads appeared, and there's a 50-50 chance that you get a conehead compared to a regular zombie. And by the way, that second conehead was so fast that I didn't get that screen door zombie right there. So I could have had this level done and over with just a chomper, and instead I couldn't. So I got completely wrecked on this level, and I actually don't think that I made a single bad decision. This is just an example. Again, every runner complains about RNG, and to be honest, the RNG really has a way of like evening itself out over the course of the level. But I got completely wrecked by RNG on that level, and there was really like very little that I could have done to change it. So you can see there, I lose about 30 seconds compared to my personal best, which was really ravaging. So what was like started off as like a pretty good run, all of a sudden on that one level, like really kind of turned around, which kind of sucks. Again, like even that final wave, I got 3 coneheads, and the one conehead was so fast that I didn't get a chance to use the cherry bomb at exactly the right moment either. So it's like, ugh, just like kill me now. So, all right, another thing I really want to talk about that I see runners make mistakes on fairly regularly is the age-old question of, okay, what puff shrooms do I plant where? And so the simple answer is like, try to plant the puff shrooms in whatever row appears to be the most dangerous for your first and your second wave. And what I mean by that is whatever row has the most number of graves that are blocking it, particularly in inconvenient positions. So in other words, in this particular level, the most dangerous row by far was row 5, because I don't have the ability to plant a puff shroom in column 7, which, like I said before, is really the value, the most value of all the puff shrooms. Any other row, if I get the first zombie in column 7, I get the first I can put the first Puff Shroom in column 7 and I'm good to go. But this was dangerous because I didn't have that ability. So that's why I planted the first Puff Shroom here. The next most dangerous row was either here or here. You could kind of make an argument for either one, so I planted it here. And then what you want to do is you want to hold off on planting your first Puff Shroom until that first zombie appears, because otherwise there's like a 40% chance that the first zombie won't have a Puff Shroom until the 7.5 second recharge time that it takes that zombie to appear on screen. So again, this one was a little bit inconvenient. You can argue I should have chompered or cherried that, and in hindsight, I actually really wish I had. I thought I was going to be able to do a little bit more damage to it a little bit more quickly, but as a result, I actually kind of had a slow 9th wave there. So that was probably a small mistake for me. But as a result, I actually got I got 5 fume shrooms out by the time the first wave appeared, and got huge value out of that cherry. So like again, another small silver lining for, all right, I got slightly slow 9th wave, but I'm doing pretty well right here. So this is another level where we're actually sort of in the middle of a community strategy debate. Some people like to replace the cherry bomb with another sunflower. The reason I don't like to do that is for 2 reasons. One, the reason that it's so valuable on 1-2 is because the chompers are really, really important, and you have enough time and enough sun production to be able to get repeaters out on this level as well. 2-4 is a little bit different. We don't have bucket heads, so as a result, it's less important to get chompers out all the time. And you have screen door zombies instead, to which the only real counter is the fume shroom other than the chomper. And so as a result, you really do need to take the fume shroom, and it's a lot less expensive than taking the other one than taking the repeater as well. So as a result of those like few minor like strategic differences, oh yeah, and we have to take the Grave Buster, otherwise the last wave would be a complete and utter disaster. So as a result of those slight differences, I actually find more value, and we have the Vaulter Zombie. So as a result, I find more value in being able to take the Potato Mine, which helps a little bit more for the final wave and for some of the early waves, and it helps with the Vaulters, and just a lot more of those like little things than we would be able to. I also got a horrendous 19th wave here with 2 Coneheads and a Vaulter. So all of these plants were idle, and I really couldn't like kill anything else very quickly as well. So that's my personal opinion. Some other people have gotten very good times by taking the Sunflower. So I think ultimately like there's maybe a 1 or 2 or 3 second like overall difference sort of based on your play style and your strategy, but I think this is an example of a level where we might actually have 2 strategies that work equally well for different kinds of runners. I mistimed my chomper there and lost another 2 or 3 seconds. So again, even though my strategy didn't work out to a T there were a lot of things that worked against me on that level, including the 9th wave, the 19th wave, and the mistake that I made with mistiming the chomper and not using the cherry bomb / the chomper at an ideal time on the 9th wave. So that one was more of an execution problem on 2-4, I would say, than like a pure RNG problem, although there were some RNG factors that certainly could have gone a different way. So now again, we sort of have our first like true auto scroller of the level, the easiest level in the run. That's 2-5. It actually doesn't even matter how quickly you smash the zombies. But the reason you can see I have some frustration slashes there is that the zombies have a chance of dropping money, which I did get a little bit of money so far. We'll talk a little bit more about money later. But they also have a chance of dropping sun, which you can use to bust graves to help you in the final wave, and busting each grave gets you more money. So the reason I was frustrated at the beginning of that is because I was not getting good sun drops. So again, just, sun's starting to pick up a little bit here. It always seems like I'll go through these, like, big droughts of not getting any sun, and then I get a crap load of sun right before the end of the level when I, like, don't even have a chance to use it. But the logic behind which graves you want to bust is basically on the final wave, we use a cherry bomb, and that helps save about 2 seconds compared to, the amount of clicking and smashing that you need to do. So basically, we try to get all of the graves in like a nice little 3x3 ring so that we can use the cherry bomb on the final wave to kill it as quickly as possible. So You can see right here, I sort of have a couple of nice spots that I would be able to cherry. You can see these grave spots are looking very, very nice for me. I'm getting a little bit more sun here, and I'm like, okay, all right, finally I have enough so that I can save for my cherry bomb. Now, of course, I'm getting a ton of sun, and, you know, I obviously wish I'd used more sooner, but what can you do? I also wanted to bring up money. We do need about $10,000 over the course of this run, and it comes to us either in $10 increments, a very small percentage of the total amount that we needed, $50 increments, which are the gold coins, or the illustrious $1,000 increments, which is a diamond drop, which is by far the most rare. And you can see, actually, in a huge twist of irony, I got that final grave in a perfect spot and managed to get a good cherry bomb and a good time on the level. So, despite not getting any sun for the first half of the level, it all kind of worked out in the end. But that's what you get. Yes, so now, again, talking about our grave placement RNG, we call this the Warmech 4-stack. I don't know if it's empirically true, and I'm sure it's, you know, kind of one of those, like, you know, you start to notice it more and more when it actually happens, but there, on some of the levels, there is a probability that you get a 4-stack of graves. So again, we have three graves guaranteed in column 9, 2 in column 8, only 1 in column 7, and only 1 in column 6. So the probability of getting a 4-stack on this particular level is truly like less than 1%. Again, it would be like, well, the first one doesn't really matter, but then it would be 2 over 5 times 1 out of 5 times 1 out of 5, right? So, well, almost between 1 and 2%, right? That's about, you know, that's about what you get. So it's like, you know, it's very, very unlikely that maybe a little bit more than actually. And anyway, whatever it is, it's not good. So what I decided to do here was get a little bit creative. Say, game, you have screwed me over so much. What I would love to do is utilize the lawnmowers. Now, you may notice we don't really utilize the lawnmowers as much in the night levels because we have the puff shroom, and it's a lot faster to basically just be able to puff all of the zombies than it is to be able to do anything else. But yeah, you can see I got a little bit of bad luck there. It would have been so nice if I could have, if that football zombie had appeared there. That's really what I was hoping for. But basically, I satisfied the 50% rule and then proc the next wave. Basically, so I could guarantee that waves 7, 8, and 9 did not have any zombies that appeared in this particular row. Now, unfortunately, I think the lawnmower got procced on wave 6, so there is a small chance that I'll get a zombie for there on wave 9, which, oh yeah, I did. And so I said, okay, I'm just gonna bust this and use the hypno because I got some real, and again, of course, in a great twist of irony, I got a diamond drop, which really does help. You really need at least 1 diamond drop over the course of the run in order to utilize the best strategies for later on in the level. So you can see here, I was very, very frustrated at this point. I had an excellent start to my run, and I just got like completely screwed with this grave placement. Like, it really wasn't even close. So at this point I said, okay, I want these to kind of all appear in the best spot, and I did make very good use of that cherry. Maybe could have put a fume shroom in this row a little bit sooner, but I was so concerned about getting that cherry timing was very precise, and the difference between the level being like barely passable, which it was, and awful was the timing of that particular cherry. Yeah, so that would be pretty good. Yep. So yeah, going back to the probabilities. Oh yeah. Oh, by the way, oops. What did we say about the grave RNG? Oh yeah, Warmech, go F yourself, because now you got the epic 5-stack, which I think we did calculate the probability of that one to be like 3 or 4%, because you do have more graves on this level. But yeah, there we go. And we call this the A1 5-stack because he's in a couple of very good runs that he's has gotten a 5-stack. Now, the 5-stack is ultimately a sort of bad subset of the Warmech 4-stack, which we had in the last level, which is the earliest that you can possibly get it. And this is the earliest that you can possibly get a 5-stack. So, like, very, very frustrated at this point, because I'm like, I wanted the tutorial to be a good demonstration of how to deal with like bad grave placement, but I also wanted it to show, oh, oops, let's just throw the Conehead in the same row that you got the last zombie, and let's put it in the second worst row that you can possibly have as well. Now again, we do have the Scaredy Shroom, which is extremely valuable, and basically one of the plants that we always take when it's available. Yeah, that would be the probability of getting in a specific row. Yeah, so that's why I was discounting that first 3 out of 5 chance. But oh, by the way, Warmech, oops, you got a Conehead in this god awful row as well, which you can see I was fairly well prepared for. I had started to plant and a Conehead in this row as well. So like I was like not ready to like quit the tutorial and restart because I did want a demonstration of how to deal with bad grave placement. I think that's important for the strategies within this run. But again, you can imagine my frustration that like these grave placements are awful. Like, yeah, it's nice to have like a wide open row like this, but like it's not even close to how bad it is to deal with something like this. So you can see I bust this 7th column so that I can get a relatively safe pea shooter out on that row as well. And of course in the 9th wave I get another Conehead. I truly got the maximum number of Coneheads on this level. I didn't even want to hypno at this point. I knew it was very close to dead. I truly got the maximum number of Coneheads in a very, very slow first half, just as a result of all of those shenanigans. So, so what can you do? Yep, it's about 5%. I think, yeah, someone calculated to be that on the 2 levels that have the ability to have the grave in that 5th column. So another very important thing to pay attention to on these levels, probably the most important thing actually, is you do have a chance of getting a screen door zombie on waves 11 and 12. So it's very, very, very important to make sure that either you have a cherry bomb that you can use, or you've busted the graves in the 9th column, like you can see I'm doing right here, such that if you get a screen door zombie in one of those rows, you have an immediate solution to it. That's because otherwise the best that you can do is basically plant 1 fume shroom, and you have a very, very slow 50% rule, because really the only plant that damages it is the fume shroom. So at this point, you can see that I have another zombie, so I'll be able to satisfy the 50% rule with this zombie right here. So it's not that important that I save the hypnos, but it's very, very important to save your cherry and your hypno for the 11th and 12th waves, if you can possibly muster it, because these screen doors will absolutely kill your time on this level. It's very, very, very important to do that. It's a similar thing with 2.9 that we can kind of talk about in a little bit. I was like, here, do I use a hypno? Do I not? Do I use a hypno or not? So I decided to use a fume shroom because on the 9th wave, you have about a 20 or 25% chance of getting a football zombie. So it's also very important that you save that hypno for the 19th wave, because it's again, if you get that football zombie, it's almost impossible to kill him manually. So you really need to have some kind of instant to deal with him. I really should have planted a 2nd fume there a little bit earlier. I was kind of not thinking very straight. But considering again that I got the god awful 5-stack and the zombie RNG that I had in the beginning, and the fact that I wasn't able to use the hypno on the final wave, that level was actually okay. Like, that's a good example of how to make the most out of a very bad set of RNG that you get. You can see I still kept to the core principles. I planted sun basically whenever it was off cooldown. I tried to prepare for the dangerous rows. I tried to get those scaredies out for the 5-stack row as soon as I could. I made sure that I used my hypno shrooms at the optimal time. I made sure I had my cherry for a good place in the final wave. I tried to bust every grave that I possibly could, and honestly, because the level was so long, I managed to do that. So again, it's important to, like, even if you get bad RNG, like focus on those core important things, and try to react to the level as best as you possibly can. Yeah, that again, that was a pretty good example of not a good level, but how to deal with a bad level. So again, 1.7 was a good example of how to really play those early levels very, very well, sort of utilize all the tools in your kit, so to speak. And 2-7 was a good example of how to deal with bad RNG, particularly on the night levels. So you can see right here, 2-8, we have our first dancer zombie. So what we try to do is plant a hypno in whatever row we think, and the hypno always or the dancer always appears on the 6th wave. So it's very important to try to get that potato mine down in whatever row you think the dancer is going to appear in. In this case, I actually got it right. There's technically, like, all else being equal, there's a 1 in 3 chance that you guess it right, but usually your options are very, very limited by, like, the graves, right? Like, basically, you know, you really have to plant it in the 9th column. You can plant it in the 8th column and it'll be okay, but it'll still spawn the backup dancers. But again, I predicted that that was not luck. I predicted that the zombie would be in that row, and it happened to be the one that had the open 9th column anyway, and I placed it early enough such that he died before those backup dancers could appear. So now what you can see that I'm doing, I'm trying to bust all the graves, knowing that with almost certainty I'm going to plant the cherry in the final wave right here. I have, once again, the potato mine set up for the top row. You can see I'm going to get tremendous value out of that. Again, be a little bit patient here. Nothing wrong with being patient. I knew that there was that backup dancer, but I was like, you know what, like, I'll deal with it with whatever I can. I almost have a hypno, just hypno him and be done. So again, this was an example of 1-8 going relatively well. It certainly can go much worse than that, but what was very important there, I planned ahead for the dancer zombie. I planned ahead for the final wave. I busted the right graves. I made sure I had a potato mine out in that top row. That was absolutely huge. And then I just tried to make sure that the 50% rule was moving along pretty quickly on the rest of the waves as well, while all still continuously planting the sun shrooms. So again, 2-8, that's an example of a pretty good 2-8. So could have it gone better? Of course, but you know, that was sort of how you want to play a level like that. 2-9, all things considered, I was like, yeah, you know what? Like these grave placements could be worse. You always get 11 graves, and again, you're going to get 3 in this column, 3 in this column, 2 in this column, 2 in this column, and 1 in this column. Just thankfully, I didn't have anything worse than a 3 stack. Now, it would have been nice. It is possible to get like no more than a 2 stack on this level. You're guaranteed at least 1 2 stack, but you know, the fact that none of the first couple of zombies appeared in these rows also sort of worked to my advantage as well. So this is this one's a good example of like not ideal grave placement, but the early zombie RNG really helped me out a lot. And you know, made things move along at like a pretty reasonable pace. And, you know, that really let me get, like, a ton of sun shrooms down. And now I'm like, okay, you know, I want to prepare for a Conehead, which I was almost sure was going to appear at some point in this row. You can see I even moved my original mouse cursor over it. Oh, and Warmech the Psychic. Look at that. I wasn't guaranteed to get a Conehead there, but basically what the game does in terms of what rows the zombies appear in is it says, okay, what zombies have we given you in the last 2 waves? And then if there's a zombie that has not appeared in those 2 waves recently, it increases the probability that those 2 waves will get those 2 rows, will get a zombie, and that the previous rows that zombies appeared in won't get a zombie. Now, it's not 100% chance. You could get the same zombie appearing in the same row every single time. The probability, like, keeps decreasing, so it would get, like, really like minuscule at that point. I really should have used a hypno on that guy. That was honestly kind of ridiculous that I didn't. So that was a mistake that I made on this level. That was a very slow 9th wave. Anyway, but the game says, okay, and so I knew I hadn't gotten a zombie in that 4th row for a long time. So I said, okay, let me be proactive with my scaredy shrooms because I'm more likely than average to get a Conehead, and I'm more likely than average for it to appear in that row, and the odds worked out in my favor. Basically, I played the odds, and it worked out. I was talking last time about the 11th wave screen door zombie, I would have been absolutely devastated if I had not busted those 2 graves. It was very, very, very important that I did that, because you really need a place to plant the hypno shrooms as soon as possible. So in other words, I try to basically prioritize on these levels the 9th wave graves first, the like 5th and 6th wave column, graves next, then probably 7th, and then the 8th the 8th column is probably the least important of all of them. Again, it should go without saying, like, whenever the puff shroom is off cooldown, plant it. You know, whenever you feel like you need more sun for the first half of each level, plant it. And then at that point, just try to use whatever other sun you have in order to satisfy the 50% rule to the best of your ability. While also planning ahead a little bit, again, I wanted to make sure all the, you know, as many of the graves as possible got busted. I knew that this was the 9th wave, and I was like, crap, I don't have any fume shrooms, so I took a chance here. The reason that was a little bit risky is because if that zombie, while he's off screen, if he starts interacting with the dancer zombie that you always get in the final wave, then you're in trouble. I actually should have dug up these two a little bit sooner, and I actually had to dig up that a little bit fast just to make sure the dancer gets all the backup dancers on screen, doom the final wave, and you're done. You do have the doom at your disposal earlier if you have to use it on either the huge wave, the 10th, 11th, or 12th waves. I highly recommend that you do, because if you don't, if you do, you're guaranteed to have it back by the final wave. And there you go. So that was very, very strong, and that looked pretty good to me. Again, I actually got a little bit lucky. There's a low probability that you get 2 zombies in the same row for the reason that I mentioned earlier, but if you do, it's nice to have a fume there. I'd say also to newer players, again, don't be too afraid. You have the same, like, you know, manipulation factor that you can use here. If you have more than 2 dooms on screen, it decreases the probability that you get a doom, and the dooms are probably the most important plant that we get overall on this level. Again, I had a little bit of bad luck early on. I didn't get a lot of, like, nice offensive, like, fume shrooms are valuable early, the scaries are valuable early, things like that. And in terms of the graves, I try to bust a lot of the more forward placing graves, because I want good doom spots. And basically the doom works in a 5x5 tile radius, so if you plant it like here, here, and here, you're basically guaranteed to get all the zombies that are on screen there. But if you plant it in the 4th row, there's a chance that you might miss the bottom of sorry, if you plant it like in the 2nd row, there's a chance you miss the zombies that are in the 5th row, and if you plant it in the 4th row, there's a chance that you miss the zombies in the 3rd row, and so on. But don't be too shy with your hypnos and with your dooms relatively early, because it's very important that you use the RNG manipulation to your favor, and don't let them stack up too much. Also very important that on the 9th wave and the 19th waves that you make sure that you have a doom as well. So at this point, I'm like, all right, let all the zombies get on screen, give them a doom, and you can see right there I used it in one of that. I call that the prime real estate, but that is one of the best doom locations, because I was guaranteed to hit every zombie that was on screen for the 9th wave, and then immediately satisfy that 100% rule and move on to the next wave. Also relatively important to try to bust some graves that are in like the 5th or 6th column area. You can see right here, I knew I wasn't going to be able to get that high hit point football zombie that takes 80 normal P shots in order to defeat very early. So I knew I had to use a doom. At this point, I'm like, all right, my dooms are really starting to stack up. I got pretty good doom RNG. All right, yeah, I got to use the Grave Buster, and I knew at this point, no matter what appeared on screen, I was going to use the doom just to make sure that I wasn't like demanipulating them. Again, use that Hypno right away, immediately, if you can, with the football zombies. That will almost always satisfy the 50% rule, and I actually got very lucky here. It's football versus football, and so I actually got double value out of that Hypno. Yep, alright, we got Bulba the Spammer in chat right here, so, oh wait, I think he's a mod, so, no, really nothing we can do about that. Again, Hypnos and Dooms versus footballs. You know, make sure that you're using your Dooms at a regular enough rate that you're okay. You can see right here, I'm like, all right, you know, I got a couple extra dooms. I got a little bit unlucky with that spawn. Here I used the doom right here. I really just wanted to get those zombies that were right there. And again, it's the 9th wave coming up, so I'm like, okay, maybe I can get all those zombies on screen, and I did by putting it right there in that nice spot at the very end. Now I'm like, oh crap, I actually didn't get enough grave busters, so I had to do this. So I utilized a very important strategy. If you have 2 dooms, plant it immediately when you see the dancer. He won't spawn backup dancers, and you can see I despawned all of the zombies that were appearing, and I had the one extra doom to use in that 3rd row right there, to be able to kill the rest of the zombies. So only do that if you have 2 dancers on screen, but I actually saved myself a ton of time by executing that exactly the way that I did. No backup dancers got spawned. I didn't need to worry about it at all, and I was able to immediately kill all of these zombies that were appearing from the graves as well too. So anyway, so that's 210. That was a well executed 210, and I probably got above average RNG as well. So a quick note on this level. This is one of the slight strategy revisions from last time that we went through this. In that I used to take the puff shroom. The reason being is that it provides a similar benefit to the walnut. It obviously like doesn't fire, but it's free, and there's definitely a place for that. But what the advantage of the walnut is that for just 50 sun, which isn't that expensive, you can basically guarantee that you're able to use your lawnmowers to their most effective rate, their most effective weight, and you're able to potentially stall out zombies in the pool on the final wave to create a better cherry spot. So those 2 benefits slightly outweigh the benefit that you get from the puff shroom being free. And so overall, it was better to take the walnut than it was the puff shroom. Not that the puff shroom is bad. Again, I really had to protect this potato mine. I'm also up against what we call a global gold, which means it was 2 minutes and 51 seconds, which is the fastest that anybody has ever completed this level. So you can see, satisfied the 50% rule. I want to utilize the lawnmowers, so I'm gonna let this zombie go. Again, I want to satisfy the 50% rule, but I also really need to deal with this zombie as well. So I was kind of in an awkward situation here. I'm like, ugh, you know, all right, I maybe should have planted that one a little bit sooner. You know, this was probably a slight mistake because I knew I was gonna potentially lose but I really just wanted to get to the 50% rule. Here I knew I was going to be at a good 50% rule from here and here. And this is the 9th wave, so again, very, very important to make sure. I probably should have planted the pea shooter first and then use the chomper, just so that I was getting that DPS out a little bit sooner. And you can see right here, I let this wave go, so we shouldn't get too much in this row, and I'm very, very well equipped for the bottom row. So even though this is not going to be as good as my gold split, which was truly ridiculous, not the greatest final wave spawn, but it actually should be okay because I have those pea shooters in the back of the pool. That's why you plant them in the back of the pool, is really for that wave. And now I sort of have to wait through the painful trudging right here of killing those regular zombies. But I'm actually pretty happy with how I played that. I'd say a 3:15 is a good target time to shoot for. I got a 3:19, so it's like, okay. But again, you know, I'm honestly pretty happy with how I played that, especially considering the number of zombies that appeared in the top rows. I didn't get to make great use of the lawnmowers other than that one that I had to dig up a pea shooter for. And I sort of misplayed the 9th wave, maybe even the 8th and the 9th wave by just a little bit. Yeah, so again, I was running against the best time, the best gold split that any runner has ever gotten while running any percent. So there we go. So all right, so on to 3-2. The first thing you want to do is plant 3 sunflowers. The next thing you want to do is immediately, as fast as you possibly can, put down the potato mine. I see some runners sometimes try to get like an extra sunshroom out of this or sunflower out of this, and you don't want to do that. The reason being, you really, really want to get that potato mine on cooldown, and you really want it to be fully charged by the time that the second wave comes around. And the amount of delay that you have on planting your fourth sunflower is really not very much. So it's very important to, in almost every circumstance, plant the plants in the order that you've seen them right here. Now, if you'd gotten another zombie in another row, you could have put this squash in the row that actually had the second zombie. Because I knew I was going to get value out of this anyway, I decided, all right, I'm going to plan ahead for the future waves a little bit more at the slight expense of the current waves. You know, I didn't get a lot of value out of that lawnmower, but that's what it really is. Again, you can see, you know, where all of that potato mine planting is really paying off. And I wouldn't necessarily have had the cooldown to do it if I delayed my potato mine production by any longer than I did. Same thing, the early squash that I planted paid off in spades on that level. You can see right here, I kind of got a little bit of an awkward seventh wave, but that's okay. I had enough. I've been doing so well in my sun production, I was able to get the 2 potato mines out. At this point, I'm kind of like, ooh, what do I want to do? I maybe should have cherried this, but I also maybe wanted to save the cherry for the 9th wave. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to let this one go. But then I had the squash ready. So in hindsight, I really should have planted the cherry there rather than the chomper. It would have been a little bit faster, and I could have had better protection for this wave as well. But I kind of wanted to get the repeater out on that row anyway, but maybe a slight mistake in that first half by just a little bit. Even though, again, I would have gotten a little bit better. I was like, you know what, like that wave's fast. But unfortunately, I really probably should have used it in the pool. I didn't see that the conehead was, or the bucket head was very, very slow. So that was another slight mistake too. I really needed to make sure that the cherry tagged the bucket head that was in the pool. You're not always going to get a bucket head in the huge wave, but sometimes you do. And again, very important to make sure that you use the chompers immediately on the high hit point zombies that you can. This is another example of where I would say that our strategy for the level has changed overall, in that really you only need 1 row of repeaters, and then every other time that you get up to 150 sun, you should make sure that you have either a squash or a potato mine that are killing the coneheads. Basically, use a chomper against a conehead or a bucket head immediately as fast as you possibly can, and let your repeaters clean up the rest. Again, you know, this was a pretty good example of 1-2 or of 3-2. I'm very, very happy with how this level was played. Again, I did a good job of sort of balancing my firepower out. I knew, unfortunately, I got a little bit of a bad 9th wave or 8th wave right there, but this was going to be okay. This one was on the 8th wave. I got this at a good spot in the 9th wave. I did manage to get 1 extra repeater out, which I think is very valuable. And again, this guy does not count. This was on the 18th wave, not the 19th wave. So the final wave will spawn even though that particular zombie wasn't dead. So again, getting a proactive chomper, that's very good. I got kind of a bad pool right here. So I'm like, you know what? Why don't I use the cherry? I saw what I had in the pool right there. I knew every other row was in good shape, and I had the 1 chomper left here to be able to deal with it. So believe it or not, I actually got a gold split on this level. So again, I really, really, really want to emphasize, like I did for 1-7 and like I did for 2-7, this 3-2 is an example of how to play this level right. Like, there are other people that, you know, might have done different things at different times. And again, you know, could have I used the cherry on the 8th wave, like I was telling you about, like when we had that kind of awkward situation? Yes, I could have. Did I recover from it? Yes, it was okay. But everything else was very, very, very good. I was very proactive with the chompers. I had just enough firepower out. I got my sun out very early. I dealt with all of the early waves very, very well. I had the right trade-offs. I got good value out of all of the plants that were planted on there. I was well prepared with the final wave. I executed the final wave very well by using the cherry when I did, the squash where I did, and the chompers where I did. I was proactive with the chompers. So like all of those things that I was talking about on this level that I did, like, again, this is sort of broad strokes for a pool level, right? Because all the pools are a little different. You have the diver zombies, you have the bobsleds and things like that. But like you have vaulters, but like this broadly speaking is how to play the pool levels right. And this isn't how to pat myself on the back, but just to like point out examples of like how these levels should broadly be played, why the build order that we have matters, how to balance your economy, how to utilize the chompers effectively, how to make sure you're not planting too many repeaters at the expense of the chompers, how to prepare for the final waves, how to deal with a final wave that's a little bit more difficult than average. Like it was very important that I played this the way I did, and I did manage to get a gold split as a result, even though I would not say that the luck was particularly good or particularly bad. It was kind of average luck, honestly, all things considered. And I was prepared no matter what the next wave was going to throw at me. I was ready for it. I had no bad waves. I had no bad 50% rules, and everything went very well. So again, if we're looking at the examples so far, I tried to give 1 per level. 1-7 went well, 2-7 went well, and 3-2 went well. And obviously, like, yay, I got a gold split. Of course it went well. But like, it's important that I explain why it went well. It wasn't because I got lucky. It wasn't because like I did one particular thing that was really well. It was all those little things that like added up over the course of the level. So like, if you're trying to improve your pool levels, like, try to watch this a couple of times. Try to figure out like why I did what I did, how I utilized the plants to their effectiveness, and like why this was a good level. Yeah, 2-7 went well relative to the bad luck that I was given. So I think 2-7, we'll say, was an asterisk. It went well. It was played well for a bad RNG level, if that makes sense. Whereas, like, there are some other levels that we'll see that were not played well for a bad RNG level. We're coming up on those, and we'll get to that a little bit later. So, yeah, considering the graves, 2-7 was played well. So, anyway, so again, we're going with the same strategy there. If the first zombie had appeared in the same way as the sunflowers, again, you can plant it in the 7th column most of the time, except if the zombie is very, very, very fast, which you'll learn to be able to identify, plant it in the 6th column. I'm gonna be totally like parched by the end of this thing. This is not product placement, but if you're looking for a good water bottle, these hydro flasks are like absolutely unbelievable. They keep hot things hot, cold things cold. They're durable. I swear to God, like I could like throw this thing on the floor and it wouldn't crack. They're good about environmental things and that sort of stuff. Like it is legit a good product. And like, I'm not sponsored by anybody. Like, let's be real. I am not like big or legit on the internet yet, but it is very good. See, Slim has my back. That boy Slim knows what he's talking about. So. Yeah, Yetis are good. My wife had a Yeti, and for her birthday, I got her a new one that we will let you know if it is good or bad. Again, same general strategy, kind of going into 2-3. It's not that different. You will notice though that because I got that diamond drop, I was able to afford the extra seed slot. There's sometimes that you don't have the ability to take 8 plants on 3-3. And so you want to go back and so in that case you want to drop the walnut. That's probably the most useless of the plants that we take here. But the reason we take the walnut, one is to be able to like stall out and make good use of the lawnmower, which you saw that I did, and the other is to we do get the diver zombies, and the walnut, as you can see that I planted right here, is an excellent counter to the diver zombie. I actually should have been a little bit more fast and proactive. I think I forgot that it was the 9th wave here, which is kind of embarrassing, but I should have done that in a different order. So if either in the 8th or the 9th column you can plant a walnut, that is a very good counter to the diver zombies. As are cherry bombs, which you'll see I utilize right there. The cherry, again, it got the diver, it protected this potato mine, so I was able to use that a little bit later. Squashes are also an excellent counter to the diver zombies. So again, even though it looks like some of these waves are getting a little out of control, what did I do? I always made sure that I was able to get to the 50% rule, and I always made sure that I had just enough firepower backed up here. I actually probably should have done that the other way around. I thought I was actually going to get the squash back in time, but I didn't, so I kind of had to waste 50 sun right here to deal with him. that was a little bit dumb, but you can see right here, I'm like, okay, I have the ability to chomper this high hit point Conehead, so that's what I'll do. I'll be a little bit proactive with this squash. You know, it didn't pay off, but I did want to get it on cooldown. I was a little bit indecisive here, and you can see that actually cost me a little bit of time. So again, some slight mistakes on this level that I wanted to point out exactly why they were mistakes and what I could have done to play them a little bit better. But now that I have repeaters in these rows, again, nothing wrong with putting the walnuts right up there in the 9th column. This potato mine should arm in time. I got a little bit lucky there, but it all worked out for the best. And now I know I'm on the 9th wave. Obviously, immediately I need to chomper that guy. And I unfortunately didn't have my squash available for these guys in the top row. So I'm like, all right, I want to put out a little bit extra firepower. This will help me for the final wave. Oh, this again, the top rows and the bottom rows in general are the most dangerous. That's why you'll see a lot of times if I have a little bit of extra firepower, or I have an extra potato mine, or I have an extra chomper. That's why I'll do what I do on those levels. Again, here I knew from the beginning I was going to plant the cherry somewhere such that it tagged this column. I had no other firepower there, and here I'm like, all right, I can squash here, and then I knew I'd be able to immediately chomper this guy for the final kill. So an okay level. Again, those slight mistakes that I mentioned, a couple of things I planted out of order, one row that got a little bit farther behind than I really wanted, you know, a couple of awkward 50% rules. So not a perfect level, but I would still say it was like overall it was okay. And I was up against a very good time. 3-1, 3-2, and 3-3 were the strongest 3 levels in my personal best. So honestly, the fact that I only lost about 20 seconds, like, compared to where I was before is not actually that bad. So I was actually feeling very good about this run at this point. You know, things were certainly okay. And again, I mentioned, you know, what's the strategy if the zombie appears in the same row as the sunflowers? If the zombie is slow enough, which certainly, like, again, I kind of have a good intuition or a good feel for it. He's actually a little bit too slow, such that I knew the potato mine was going to arm before then, but it's still too dangerous to put it in the 8th column. Again, just basically the same thing. Let this zombie go, but if he had appeared in the same rows as sunflowers, squash him. Same thing with the next wave and the next wave until you can let at least one of the zombies go. The one thing I do want to talk about is if you're behind on sun, try not to let quite as many of the zombies go unless you know, like, you should always let at least one go, but maybe not more than that unless you know you're going to get really good value out of it, because each lawnmower that you have at the end is worth $50. And although that's not a huge percentage of the total amount of sun that we need for the entire run, it's less than 1%, like, that does add up. If you waste 4, 5, 6 lawnmowers, that could be the difference from you being able to afford the gloom shroom that we take later on, or one of the so you can see, again, I got really unlucky right there. I was really, like, if that zombie had had a better starting X coordinate position, i.e. he had been closer to the front, which is another random element of the RNG that we have to take into consideration, or if he hadn't been slow as absolute sin, I would have gotten perfect value out of that lawnmower, but instead I didn't. I had to use the 150 sun on the chomper. I slowed down my sunflower production. You know, I knew I was going to have this chomper for a later wave, but I was just very disappointed by that. It was that close to being like an amazing start, and it was still a very good start. I was still able to get like a lot of sun production down. I like to have at least 16 sunflowers by the time you get the big wave warning. That's sort of a good rule of thumb. And because 3-4 is the first 3 flag level that we get, yeah, this is a little bit ugly. I wanted to try to save some of these chompers. I was a little bit late on that. I was kind of disappointed in the play, but I was like, oh wait, maybe this will actually work out perfectly. These 2 zombies are from different waves, but one was so much faster than the other that they actually caught up and died to the same potato mine. I don't think I've ever had that happen in an actual run before. Very, very small chance of that happening. And again, I got a very unlucky wave right here that all of the zombies just happened to show up in the row that I didn't have good firepower. Oh yeah, and then I got the double vaulter, or as A1 would say, it's the Olympics come to invade Warmech Stream. So again, normally I like to have like between 22 and 24 sunflowers out for this level, but you can see I was just so delayed by like all of that crap that happened. And again, I really think it came down to those shenanigans that had happened with this row. If I'd been able to utilize that lawn more effectively, get more sun out, get a repeater here sooner, I actually think like almost all of my problems on this level, I actually maybe should have cherried this. That was kind of a borderline decision. But again, very important to get that the Buckethead dead as soon as possible. Again, I'm getting 2 zombies in the same row. It's like, you know, come on, game. Like, can you cut me a little bit of slack? So this was like the opposite of 3-2 in the sense of, again, I wanted to save that that potato mine. I didn't quite save it. Plus, it was the 19th wave, and I had kind of an awkward, you know, wave layout. So like, I had a lot of like little things go against me on this level that I think could have gone a little bit better. Again, I'm overall pretty happy with how I dealt with it, other than like I just completely didn't see that Buckethead. That was like 5 seconds slower than it had to be due to something, again, that was like completely my fault. I really should have seen that so much sooner. But they were like moving together, and like the regular zombie was kind of blocking him out. So again, very, very, very important. Whenever you see Buckethead, like all your attention should be focused to that, and like what instant can I use to kill him fast, and that's it. So yeah, so there we go. All right, so yeah, moving right along. It's okay to use the cherry relatively early as long as you use it usually by about the 6th wave or so, or in this case the 26th wave, such that you know you're going to have it back by the time the final wave comes around. That's really the most important thing. And getting a lot of divers in this row, very, very annoying. I probably should have, you know, yeah. And again, your Tangle Kelp only like recharges at a certain rate. This I actually got a little bit lucky on. This was pretty good planning on my part that I think really worked out. Again, I wanted to make sure that I waited right till that zombie died. Oh, yay, another diamond. So now at this point, I know all my money problems are solved. I can be completely reckless with money. I know I'm going to be able to buy every rake. I know I'm going to be able to buy the gloom shroom, and so really I'm not going to have. I can use every lawnmower that I want. I'm really not going to have any problems for the rest of the run. Again, getting early chomper down, getting early potato mine down. I didn't get huge value out of either one, but it's still relatively nice. Again, I saw 3 zombies there. I can use the squash, and then at that point you'll have your chomper off cooldown. I didn't quite get all 3 of those zombies. I kind of had a bit of an awkward row there. So again, overall 3-4 was okay. Mostly due, I would say, to a strong final wave, a good 29th wave, and doing a pretty good job with my sun production. Again, just a couple of those little things that I actually think make it possible that I could have gotten a sub 6-minute time on this level if everything had gone well, if I hadn't had some of those like awkward waves during the second flag, and if I didn't have those couple of slight misplays, like I said, with the or misplays / bad RNG, like with the with that 5th row thing, and some of the cherries that I kind of misplayed a little bit. I don't know if Super's with us, but Super, you jelly. Again, sometimes this level does not like you to have pea shooters, so that's what we do. This is a normal conveyor level. Again, anytime that I have 3 or more cherry bombs, I should really think about trying to play one as soon as I reasonably can. I actually didn't get a lot of lily pads here at all, so that's why I'm like, okay, I'll just play this one. There is a 50% rule here that works, but the difference is the minimum time between the waves goes from like 25 to 31 seconds all the way down to like 6 or 8 seconds or something like that. The most important thing, though, make sure you have 2 cherries that are available for the 9th wave and the 19th waves, and plant them right here and right here. That way you'll get the big wave spawning immediately, and you can be on your way. Again, I had more cherries than I was like honestly comfortable with, so I'm like, you know what, like might as well use that, demanipulate them a little bit, get them on cooldown. 2 pea shooters, by the way, is enough to deal with a football zombie if you're hitting him from start to finish. And again, it's definitely okay to use the occasional ad hoc cherry, as long as you make sure that you have them for the 9th wave and for the 19th wave, of course, and for the final wave. The other thing you want to do is plant a lily pad with a walnut. Anytime that you're worried about a diver zombie coming after you. The reason that this 7th column is appropriate is because a cherry bomb that you plant in the 9th column will still hit any zombies that are currently chewing on that walnut, including in the final wave as well. You can see I just had like so much stuff here that I was honestly like a little like overwhelmed. I probably should have put the walnut down here a little bit sooner. I really don't know why I didn't. That was kind of silly. But I was really trying to prepare for the 9th wave. I don't know why I hesitated there. I really shouldn't have. I was very confident. I knew I had 2 cherries for the final wave, and I was really going to be in okay shape. So this is looking up to be a pretty good time. And again, if you get a 3rd cherry, what you can do is you can put the cherry right there, sort of clean out those ones that are sort of out of reach of the other 2 cherries. Make sure that all the zombies get on screen, and then give a quick 1-2 punch with the cherries. But this was 3-5 was very good. I was very happy with that level overall, I would say. Other thing important to do on 2-6, buy the rake. If you have to choose between the rake and the last seed slot, well, first of all, you're probably screwed. But I actually think it's more important to take the rake. Some other runners would disagree, but I think the rake is very, very, very important for 3-6, 3-7, 3-8, 3-9, 3-10. And then again for 4-10, 5-1, 5-2, 5-3, and really for the rest of the roof levels. It's okay to skip the rake. It does cost $200, but the reason the rake is very valuable is because it will always hit the first zombie. The first zombie is always guaranteed to appear in this row. And what you could do is you can immediately plant the potato mine, and even if the second zombie appears right here, it will always arm in time, and you'll be able to kill the second zombie with that potato mine. But again, that's only if you plant it immediately after you plant your 3rd sunflower. That's why it's very, very important to do that. The reason I was a little bit more aggressive with this potato mine, as you can see, I'm even kind of highlighting there right in the VOD, is that, if I got it, I knew I was going to have the squash to protect it. And I could let one of the other rows go a little bit if I absolutely had to. This was maybe a mistake. I probably should have started planting the sunflowers in this row and let both of these rows go. Again, I can do that because I don't need to worry about money. And I actually kind of got a very nice grave right here. This will take care of the 50% rule. What I also like doing is I like placing the potato mine in whatever row has just used the lawnmower, because I know that no matter how fast I kill the next 2 waves, that potato mine will always arm in time by the time that zombies would have appeared in that again. Anytime you use a lawnmower, you're guaranteed that the next 2 full waves, including the final wave, will not have any zombies that appear in it. Now, you will get them appearing out of graves if that happens. But here I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to get the 50% rule. Let's just plant the potato mine right here. Deal with this zombie sort of via other means, although he is very, very fast. And then again, a very, very smooth first flag that I'm extremely happy with. You'll see I got I did get all 16 sunflowers down. I have a couple of repeaters down. I have my instance off cooldown. I have my cherry bomb available. So again, this 2-6 intro, I would say overall was a good example of a first wave that's sort of working out all according to plan. I knew I'd be able to save those guys. Try to make sure you have either a squash or the cherry or a chomper available for the 11th wave. You'll always get the zomboni for that wave. I don't know why I did this. I actually think it would have been better if I'd chompered that guy. At this point, I was a little worried, so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to use that poor sunflower as a little bit of cannon fodder. Save me a little bit of time. And chomper this guy, but again, that could have been chompered before, so I'm a little bit unhappy with this 12th, 13th, and 14th wave. You can see I actually got a really bad 50% rule there that didn't proc for the longest time. Again, a lot of Coneheads, and not doing a great job of getting my firepower out, and I'm like, oh crap, I didn't think, I'd get another zombie that was going to be right here so soon. I still don't have any pea shooters out in this row. I got 2 zombies appearing here. I really had to use the squash. So there, I didn't get great value out of that potato mine. So there were all these teeny little things that happened in the second flag, some of which were my fault and some of which weren't. you know, that just sort of caused me to fall behind on the time a little bit. And now I even got like a pretty bad wave here. You know, I did manage to get the 50% rule in okay pace. But now I'm like, oh crap, like look at all this crap in the pool. Like look at, you know, like what am I going to do? So I'm like, oh, I really have to use the squash in the pool. I have to get both of those guys down. I luckily just got that chomper back and then had this chomper back as well. So luckily I like totally bailed myself out, you know, of this, of that situation a little bit. But I just like a couple of little things that didn't go my way in the final wave. You'll see here I utilize the Tangle Kelp to effect. I used the chomper, or I used the cherry bomb there, and now I know I have a chomper off cooldown. I knew I didn't have the squash for a little while because I used it on the 19th wave, so that was really the only thing that slowed me down there on the final wave. Again, I think I could have been a little bit more prepared, and if a few things had gone differently in the second flag, I think that could have caused, I think that could have gone so much better. But you know, that's the way it goes sometimes. You know, you can't always get what you want, but there we go. So 3-7 is our second 3 flag level. So on the 3 flag levels, again, we up our sunflower production to about the 20 to 24 range, depending on how it all works out. And there's really no like unique, you know, special strategy that goes along here. You know, I would say it's you know, I might even, I should fast forward a little bit. Play this one at 2x speed. I'll keep it at normal speed. I know we did a couple of pauses, so things are going to take a little bit longer than I thought. But again, you know, place the early potato mine, let the second zombie go, or use a squash against it, and then let the third one go, or use a squash against it. You know, keep those potato mines off cooldown. Again, I can't understate the importance of that. Always, always, always plant sunflowers. Again, sometimes a mistake that I'll see was sort of some of the like middle of the pack runners in terms of, you know, towards the top of our leaderboard is they don't quite prioritize planting sun enough. And again, going back to the RTS analogy, it's like the same thing. Like you always want to plant you always want to make villagers at the beginning of the game, right? You always want your economy to be as good as it possibly can be right there at the beginning of the game. Again, use those potato mines in the same row that the lawnmower just procced, and keep planting sun. If you need to use, you know, the occasional repeater to deal with a wave, great, no problem. If you need to use a chomper, you can try to avoid it. You know, try to deal with the wave other ways, but just always make sure. Again, I know I had 50%. I had a third there. I had another third right there. I was going to be okay. This guy I could sort of stall out a little bit. I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just plant the potato mine there? I can sort of leave myself worry-free. And this, I'm like, you know, that's a little bit of a bummer, but I knew I was going to have the squash off cooldown. Again, I prioritized the sun over the squash by just a little bit. I knew I was on the 9th wave, and so again, another wave dealt with very, very effectively. Anytime you can get below 2 minutes and 30 seconds when that huge wave notification appears, it means you've done a really, really good job on these levels with the rake. And again, not patting myself on the back. I don't really care. It's just a matter of, you know, trying to point out what went well in addition to, you know, things that possibly went wrong. Now I'm like, oh boy, you know, I have a slight lack of firepower in these rows, so I'm going to use a couple of instants just to keep my head above water, just to make sure I can, again, kind of keep up with those instants, keep up with the 50% rules, you know, try to get a few more sunflowers out, try to get another repeater out or two. And so you can see I was able to move along from these waves really quickly. Again, a little bit of bad luck here. These Coneheads, you know, are not ideal. I really do need to use an instant against one of them if I want to have any hope against the 50% rule. Again, here I knew I had the squash almost coming off cooldown. I decided to chomper it anyway, and now I'm like, oh great, you know, this kind of sucks. I knew I might lose that. You know, I maybe should have done something a little bit sooner to deal with it, so I'm a little bit disappointed in that particular wave. I think I could have dealt with that a little bit better. Again, always, you know, either squash or chomper, you know, really whatever's available to you until making sure, you know, you do want to make sure you have the squash for the final wave if you can, but just get those bucket heads dead. It's really extremely important. Again, now sort of wishing that I had a better solution for some of the zombies in the top row, and now I'm like, ugh, you know, like, okay, I got a little bit here. I wish I could have had that cherry for, you know, just a little bit sooner than I did, and I got 3 zombies. Look at that, I got 3 zombies in that middle right there. I'm like, wait a second, what the hell? I think I only saw 2 of them, and so I was like, wait, how did that, what? I really should have used the squash right there, and if I'd had the cherry available, I think I really could have made that second half so much better. So again, those 2 or 3 little things I think I should have done differently in the second half. Of course, it's easy to sit here and talk about it, right? It's always a different thing to, like, go ahead and play it. It's always funny when the chomper misses. That cracks me up a little bit, but anyway. And so now at this point, again, it's a 3 flag level. It's okay to start to get a second row of repeaters out in every row. I really think that's okay. Yeah, so again, if you have enough space, the chomper does work against the bobsled. It's one of my favorite mechanics in the entire game. And there's really a lot of value. Again, you can use those cherries early as long as you know you're going to have it off cooldown for the final wave. Again, squashes work against. There's actually a lot of solutions to the bobsled. It's not just the spikeweed and stuff. There's really a lot of very, very good solutions to them. So definitely recommended. Again, just keep chompering them. You can get away with a chomper in the 9th column, but again, that's a little bit of a risk, you know, that you have to play. I wanted to save that potato mine, and luckily my 2 chompers right here really, you know, really kind of came in big. I wish I'd had a little bit more firepower maybe in the top row. You know, could have got that guy dead just a hair sooner, but again, I think it's okay. I did lose the chomper, but that's all right. Again, try to prioritize the top and the bottom rows, and then make sure that you have good solutions for the middle row. Well, that potato is not going to make it. You see right there, I'm like, oh god, look at all these bucket heads. So that's why I'm like, all right, if I stall this out just a little bit, I should be able to get all these guys. Then I can use a chomper here, and if I'd been a little faster with the squash there, I maybe could have even saved another second or two. But again, that difference between again, that was a very good level. Really no complaints. You know, really the main difference that I should have done differently was right at the end of that second flag. You know, I think I needed a few more solutions to some of those like awkward waves that the game that the game gave me, and you know, that's really where I could have saved the time there. First flag was very good, and yeah, and away we go. So, all right. So, you know, moving along to 3.8. What makes 3.8 interesting is we get the introduction of the diver zombie. So the diver zombie is a real pain in the ass, and you know, really likes to make himself cause a lot of problems. It's basically like a really fast vaulter that only appears in the pool, and usually the pool are, you know, some of the weaker areas, just because, you know, we don't have unlimited sun for unlimited lily pads and all that stuff. So now I was like, yeah, you know what, I thought whether I should have squashed him right away, but I wanted to make sure I had enough sun for the sunflowers. And now I'm like, okay, you know what, like, I'm thinking really strongly about potentially letting both of these zombies go. You know, it may not have been the best idea, because now I need to invest a little bit more sun earlier on to the lily pads, but, you know, I was like, you know, I didn't have any instance, I didn't have enough sun for the repeaters, and so I'm like, you know what, like, just keep prioritizing some of these other rows. And now, you know, by the time I had this one down, I was like, oh, okay, I guess I can do that. So even now, I would have loved it that Conehead had appeared in the bottom row. That would have worked out much better for me. But instead, by using the chomper like I did, I got a lot of value out of that bottom lawnmower right there. And by using the chomper, that I actually thought I got use of that one as well. So not the most value I've ever gotten from the lawnmowers, but still I think good enough to secure a pretty good time. And here I'm like, oh, 9th wave. Zombies appear together, cherry bomb, and I got a 216 first flag. This was my best first flag ever, except I have no firepower out. So now I'm like, okay, I maybe need to like try to slow down some of these waves a little bit. Like, I'm doing well on sun compared to what I usually do, but, you know, I'm going to slow this down. I could have used the chomper there. I wanted to save the chomper. You know, I knew that there was going to be, or I could have used a squash. So now I'm like, okay, maybe I can get like a nice 2-for-1 right here. And I did, so that's nice. So now I'm like, all right, maybe I can just Tangle Kelp that next Conehead, still try to get a little bit more sun out. And then, of course, I get this garbage wave that has the two, the two, the two Coneheads. And I wonder if I should have used a Chomper on this one a little bit sooner. Actually, in hindsight, I think I should have. So this was a combination of me playing deliberately slow by a little bit. And again, nothing wrong with an early cherry there, especially when it helps me get a 50% rule. You know, nothing wrong with using those Chompers a little bit early. I just, you know, the first half was so fast that it almost sort of reaches a point of what we call the first world problems of PvZ1 speedrunning, and that's that I killed the zombies too fast, and now you know, now you're set in a pickle for the second half. Again, I got a really bad 50% rule there. So again, some of the speed in the first half is definitely being offset a little bit in the second half, but also like I had some garbage, like that zombie was super fast and he ate one of my repeaters. Like there's like all these little things that happened in 1.8 that like just really kind of like, you know, ground my gears a little bit. But I'm like, wait a sec, Warmech, maybe you're thinking a little bit next level here, because of course what's coming up but the 19th wave and the final wave. Wouldn't it be really interesting if we could, you know, make good use of a lawnmower and, you know, basically help secure that our zombies are in a good spot? And to tell you the truth, this was like almost like an existential moment that I had of like, if we were to improve PvZ strategy further, like what would that look like, right? That's sort of like a fun thought exercise that, you know, I try to think of like more often. I really bombed that cherry bomb, no pun intended, but that was like absolutely horrendous. I was very, very ashamed of that. Again, I still somehow almost got a gold, but again, that was mostly due to how good the first half was, made up for with like a little bit of like some sluggish waves in the final half. But like, what would the next level PvZ strats look like? And I actually think that like someday, if we were really thinking like very meta, we would know exactly when to like start deleting sunflowers in order to utilize the lawnmowers on like those later waves in order to secure a good 19th wave and maybe to secure a better final wave, such that we've got more value out of like the cherries or the dooms or, you know, whatever it is that we're planting. Like it's like the same mentality that we had. Like, we have all these lawnmowers at our disposal. There is some cost to using them in terms of like, you're sort of sacrificing an entire row. You're sacrificing the $50 that you get from them. But, could we be even better about using the lawnmowers? And I think the answer might be yes. And it's almost some of those like late game lawnmowers, right? Like I think that's sort of the major difference that we're looking into. It's like, is there a way that you could get some value out of the lawnmowers on the final waves, much like we do in 1.3, 1.4, all like 1.6, 1.8, all of those early levels that were kind of forgotten about? Why not use that same mentality? And like digging up sunflowers at the end doesn't really matter because they're only going to produce like what, 1 or 2 more sun tops. That's not really a major sacrifice if you're talking about really being able to make these final waves a lot faster than they ever otherwise have. So like, I'm sort of like, it's very difficult to plan for. It's very difficult to like think about on the cuff. Like, when do I dig up my plants? Like, that's like the most like counterintuitive thing that you can possibly think about. And here I'm like, ugh, like what garbage, what garbage is this? I'm like, okay, maybe I can like do this and like let him go and maybe get value out of a squash, but the chomper, and like, I really couldn't get like good value out of this at all. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to sacrifice 1 sunflower here, use the squash and be done with it. I also got a bad 50% rule. So I'm like, 3.9, like, why do you have to do, but again, that's something that like, that's a combination of, it is bad RNG, but it is something that I should have been planned for. I didn't have my squash off cooldown. I should have had the squash, or I should have had some other solution to be able to make better use of either a lawnmower or something like that than I really did. So as a result, you can see here I got a 250 first flag, which is really bad. Now, granted, I have a ton of sun out. I have a ton of firepower out. I have my instance off cooldown. So it's not going to end up being that bad of a sacrifice, but it's just really too bad that I wasn't able to deal with that one wave a little bit more effectively. And even looking at it now, I'm like, boy, like I could have played it a little bit differently. I could have made the vaulter jump a little bit sooner and maybe used a chomper, and I probably should have, but like, you know, none of those things were really like, none of those things really seemed like options in the beginning, which is too bad. So this really, yeah, I wanted to use that Tangle Kelp. Like there wasn't much of a time difference at that point. Just waiting it out. Again, these waves are kind of nice because you can basically go all repeater and you get your 50% wave very fast. Again, like in the same time, like you don't want idle military and idle villagers in your real-time strategy game. You don't want idle plants any longer than you absolutely have to. Ideally, you would have all your plants firing for all the time to really maximize their effectiveness. So, you know, the next best thing that we have to go with is like, again, try to get to the next wave and let the existing, I don't know why I was so delayed. I think I was like confused and I felt like it was more dangerous than it really was. I don't really know why that happened, and then I didn't have a lily pad for that guy. So like all these things I'm thinking about, like, again, we had a good example of how to play the pool levels. That was 3-2. And we had a bad example of how to play the pool levels. That's 3-9. So, you know, and again, some of them are my fault, sure. Some of it's not my fault. It doesn't really matter. It's just, you know, it's important to sort of think about like what separates a good level from a bad level. And so what I'm really trying to point out in this tutorial is like some of the mistakes or, you know, elements of bad RNG or things that I didn't react very well to, or things that I did react well to, and sort of like how that helps to make a good level good and a bad level bad. So hopefully all that has been has been pretty clear to you all, because that's really what I was going for. Again, get those bucket heads dead. Nothing more important than really like trying to prioritize that as fast as possible. I actually thought I was going to be able to save that chomper by doing this, and instead I killed him. But that's how it goes. Again, squash or chomper those guys. We do forego the cherry bomb for the torchwood on this level. That is the right play in my opinion. The cherry bomb is very valuable, but the torchwood saves so much time in these in between flags, and the final wave, like, because we have torchwood, you really don't need the cherry that much anyway. You know, we have chomper, we have the squash, we have the tangle kelp, we have a lot of repeaters out. It's a 3 flag level, so every row has at least 2 repeaters. I think that's I think that's very good. Yep. So my sum of best at this point in the run is 3 hours, 15 minutes, and 33 seconds. That time will probably never be attained without a major breakthrough in the game, and that's simply because there's some levels that really are only accomplishable with good RNG, even with absolute perfect play. Oh, as you can see, that chomper absolutely whiffed. You know, even with absolutely perfect play, you can't get a certain, like, you need very specific things to happen that there's only a moderate probability for. So you know, could we see a 2 hour 20-minute run someday? I think so. Maybe even sub that. But I don't think we'll ever get into like the 310. Our global sum of best is at about 310 or 311, if I recall. Again, I got a little bit unlucky there. It would have been nice if that Conehead was first, but again, I should be very close to the 50% rule using the 3-peater that I got. And then basically anytime that you're not close to the 50% rule, you can just use the squash on one of the high hit point zombies. I actually got a really bad 50% rule right there. Like literally, I think it was 50% because I had done a ton of damage to that wave. And so that was actually a pretty big difference maker on this level. I just didn't get to deal with that first wave nearly as fast as I could have. I do agree with the decision to save the squash for the second wave. I think that was the right one. I'm getting a couple torchwoods right here. I decided to risk this torchwood. This was very, very risky, but I also knew I had a tall nut if, in worst case scenario, if I didn't think that I was going to be able to take care of it, which I didn't. Oh wow, global sum best did crack 310. That's amazing. That's really, really good. We'll have to see if the global sum of best gets improved a little bit on this run too, won't we? That might be a little bit of foreshadowing. Again, the same type of RNG manipulation works with the other conveyor levels. We really don't need that many tall nuts, and we don't need that many lily pads. So if I avoid planting the ones that I have, then I'll be even better off. And wouldn't that be nice? So again, here I'm on the 9th wave. Very important to use that guy as soon as possible. And then basically, yeah, just you know, repeater the rest of these guys down. And actually a pretty good first flag. A sub 2 minute first flag is very good. Despite the fact that that first wave itself was bad. I get decent 3-peaters. 8 is a decent number of 3-peaters to have at this point, and 3 torchwoods is maybe average to a little bit above average. Now this is the point where we do want to plant the tall nuts, just like you see right here, because the dolphers, the divers, they all get really hard countered by the tall nut. No one saw that, I'm sure. My lips feel really dry too, so I gotta take a break. And not a whole lot more to talk about in 310 other than just, you know, really try to continue to prioritize that 50% rule. Make sure you try to have a little bit of extra firepower in some of the rows that don't have the torchwoods. My torchwood luck has sort of dried up a little bit. I like to have, you know, all 6 of them by the second flag. Ideally, realistically, I should have 4 or 5 in most games. You can even see I decided to use a tall nut there so I can make better use of the spike weed. I think that was the right decision. It's just a little bit of DPS. You know, it's not huge, but it is some pretty nice DPS that we get right there. And I wanted to save this jalapeno for the 19th wave. That's this one coming up right here, and then I'm like, ooh, okay, all right, and I get the torchwood right there. So really worked out perfectly. I can jalapeno the row that doesn't have the torchwood, and I can then put down my last torchwood. So again, 5 torchwoods is pretty good. You know, I can't always expect to have all 6 at this point. It's certainly nice when I do. So at this point, I'm like, okay, we start putting the 3-peaters in the pool like this because we're able to utilize all 3 of them. I chose that 4th row specifically because I knew it would help out the 5th row, which right now is my most vulnerable of all the rows. Again, make sure you either have spikeweed or some sort of instant to deal with all those bobsleds. Pretty important. I don't know why there was such a big delay in the conveyor belt there. That was really weird. Anyway, moving along here, I'm like, yep, you know, instantly use that squash. You know, gotta protect those rows as best you can. The 6th row, I was like, you know, I'm gonna hang on to one of these, like, just for a little while. You know, just to make sure I have solutions for the final wave. The jalapenos are very, very valuable in the final wave. I am glad I used that jalapeno when I did. The level's looking good. I love these jalapenos towards the end. I love them on the 19th wave, or 29th wave. And you can see, again, we really, like, torched all of these zombies pretty good. And I still have 1 jalapeno left over for the final wave. So even if I never get that torchwood, which I actually did, I knew I was going to be okay for the final wave. I have a squash, I have a jalapeno, I have some tangle kelp. I have a lot of stuff that I can really make, I can really make good use of. So I'm like, ooh, that bottom row looks unhealthy. The 4th, but then, like, the wave just died. I had so many 3-peaters and, you know, a good couple of instants that were really good. So again, what I used to shoot for was a sub 2-hour time frame after the pool levels. On this one, I almost got a sub 159 pool levels, which is really, really good. How you doing, by the way, SS? Welcome. Welcome everyone that I haven't specifically greeted in chat. We're really glad to have you aboard. Now on to the fog levels, which I've actually become a fan of for the most part, although we'll see if that holds up throughout this run, because I felt like they've been, like, the least RNG based on the whole. There are certainly some big RNG aspects to it, with the exception of 410, of course. Yes, this is pre-recorded. I recorded it on Tuesday, and I am just voicing over it now so that I can, like, focus all my time and attention on what went well and what didn't. I also have a cheat sheet here of sort of things I wanted to talk about, levels that went well, levels that didn't go well. all of that stuff. So so just some things to keep in mind. My money pace is very good, so I have really no money concerns. But again, that is something that you want to think about. It's really best not to take the really not best to take the rake in the fog levels if you can avoid it. If you don't have enough money, but if you have a diamond or anything beyond that, you should definitely consider taking it, because it is very valuable. Again, only strategy I would say on this level, again, keep up with your sun production, keep up with your puff shroom production, and make sure to try to get an early tangle kelp if you can, so that way you could get another tangle kelp by the 9th wave, and you can use the squash on the 9th wave as well. Really, what this level is all about is getting that 9th wave dead as soon as you can, and making sure that you have enough for a doom in the pool for the final wave. So that's why you see I'm really kind of going ham with the sun shrooms. Very important. Could have I planted another scaredy shroom or two? I think so. But again, I did a good job getting both of those tangle kelps out. I have a squash for the 9th wave. Lo and behold, I found exactly where it was, and now all of a sudden this level is really looking up. Other than that really slow zombie that it took to get on screen there. But in terms of like how to deal with a fog level effectively, this was a pretty good example. Again, I got a lot of Coneheads. I got a very slow 9th wave in terms of the physical speed of the zombie, but still happy with the time save here. This level has definitely been a lot worse for me, and that's that's what we get. So in terms of, we haven't talked a lot about plant selection, but I'd say like it's not super important the order that you pick, but I try to make like the sun shrooms like sort of towards the middle-ish, maybe a little to the left, but it's also very important to like just develop a rhythm, develop a system, and learn how to pick the plants as fast as possible, because that's one thing that newer runners can actually lose 2 or 3 minutes on if they're not particularly careful. So again, very important to really try to get that rhythm just right, and keep it going. So not a lot to talk about for the first half of 4-2. Actually, my stomach hurts a little bit, so I'm going to try to get something to eat. I don't want to run out of gas, almost literally, for this level. So not too much to talk about here, other than we now have the plantern. You'll see the strategy of where we plant the plantern, and then how we utilize the scaredy shrooms in order to help the DPS of each row, particularly the rows that have the Coneheads, which, by the way, just take a moment to sort of listen for those. The Coneheads has sort of a plunk. You can sort of hear it right there, versus the regular zombies have sort of a plip. And any Coneheads or metallic zombies that we have sort of a ping. So it's actually important to use those audio cues, because sometimes you can use that to almost like see through the fog a little bit, and be able to prioritize what plants go where. I've been complimented in the past by other runners that I do a good job of sort of assessing what types of zombies are in what rows, even when there's a lot of fog. So I'll try to talk a little bit about like some of those strategies that I use. But I will be right back. Probably won't be gone more than 2 or 3 minutes, but I just need to get myself a little food, or else I'm worried my stomach's gonna hurt. Actually, a little bit of a mistake here. I should have saved this squash for the 9th wave. That's the one thing I'll talk about. I actually thought I was on the 9th wave, and then I was like, oh crap, I'm not. Wouldn't have been really nice if I could have just squashed that Conehead in the top row, and then just unloaded the firepower on the bottom wave as well. So I probably actually lost about 5 seconds, I would say, due to that 9th wave. one quick comment here while I finish my food. The 19th wave has a chance of having a football zombie. It's very, very, very important that you save the squash for the 19th wave. Like, you know, it's like what's the other one that it can do that? 2-7. You know, it's very important that you can use the squash, you can be aggressive with it, but don't use it maybe past like the 15th wave or so, because you really want it to be back for the 19th wave. And you can see there I actually got one of my best times ever on this level, and it would have been an absolute disaster if I had not had that squash. That would have been a real problem. So anyway, 2-3, I'll finish my food real quick, and then 2-3 has a very interesting mechanic that I do want to talk about as well. Excellent. Alrighty. Wormek has returned. Wormek has not had dinner yet, so his belly was feeling not 100% after not really having eaten anything since noon, which was about, let's see, 7.5 hours ago, my time at this point. But I'm back. So what's very interesting about this level is the 50% rule still works. And you may notice we didn't take anything directly that counters the balloon zombie. That's because, believe it or not, the balloon zombie always spawns with another zombie. In this case, you can see there was a zombie there in the pool. And the balloon zombie and the regular zombie have almost identical amounts of hit points, except the balloon zombie has a tiny bit more, meaning that if you get a true 50% rule, killing that other zombie alone is not enough. There's about a 90% chance. Ooh, and you can see tremendous value that I got right there. That was pretty awesome. I was happy about that one. So if you get a really bad 50% rule, i.e. it's exactly 50%, you actually have to wait for that grueling animation of the balloon zombie to go all the way down the screen, and that can actually take about 15, maybe even 20 seconds sometimes. So you can see it didn't, and I was actually a fraction of a second off my gold there. That was basically a gold split. So again, another example of 4-3 going exactly well. Now, did I get a little bit lucky with that lawnmower? Yes. But does that sometimes happen? Also, yes, absolutely. You guys think it's pre-recorded? Maybe I just like shuffled like under my camera a little bit, and I was just playing with one hand. It's all an instinct at this point. Yep. So yeah, so it is a 50% sort of epsilon rule. What it actually is the 35 to 50% rule. The game picks a random number between 35 and 50%, and that is the amount of the zombie's hit points that you need to do. So in other words, sometimes you can get away if there were like 3 regular, like, well, I can't, whatever the numbers are, right? Say there's 7 regular zombies. You can get away sometimes with killing just 3 of them, or doing only about 1/3 of the wave's total hit points when the next wave appears. Or in other words, the number of shots that you need to do to satisfy the 50% rule could be 7, or it could be 6, or it could be 5. You can actually get the 50% rule on a regular zombie with as few as 5 or as many as 7 shots. And that actually does make a pretty big difference, particularly in some of these fog levels. If you get a lot of 7s in a row, then like it's slower for the next wave to appear, etc., etc. Splice says A1. Yep. Oh, look, Ma, no hands. Look, Ma. Look, Ma. Look, Ma, I can do it. I'm a big boy. So, yep. So it's actually a 35 to 50% rule is the true math that goes behind it. And then again, the math behind like what the zombie's actual hit points are is even wackier. Like a regular zombie has 270 hit points, with each normal pea shot or puff shroom or whatever doing 20 damage to it. So in other words, a single zombie, you need to get it down to 135 hit points, but it's actually basically a random number between 100 and 100-ish, whatever 35% of 270 is. I can actually do that math because... yeah, I wonder what technically that damage value is, just to sort of prove it mathematically, right? So 370 times 0.35 equals, yep, so it needs to have 94.5 of its hit points taken away, which you do when you get 5 shots, but you would need to be in the teeny tiniest bracket. You would need to be like at 35 or 36% out of the possible 35 to 50% rule in order to get that 5 to work. And there was actually one time that it worked to my advantage. I had a 4 stack of graves that lasted from rows column 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So I planted 1 regular puff shroom. It did 5 damage to the first zombie. By the way, you can use an early doom on this level if you have to. And the balloon zombies are very good 50% rule. The blover is very good at it. Anyway, I did 5 damage to that zombie and saved myself basically the equivalent of a 5 stack because I happened to get a really, really good 50% roll with a zombie in the with a plant in the 9th wave, or only the 9th wave was the one that was that was open. Yeah, so someone looked into the web code, for the source code from the web version of the game, and was able to extract a lot of this. However, the web version only goes through like level 2.4 or 2.5, so as a result, we did not get to see like a lot of the cool probabilities behind some of the later levels, like what the probability is of getting magnets on 210 or 3-peaters on 310, or some of these other like very funny mechanics that we have here. Again, okay to use a blower here, only so long as you make sure that you have enough for your doom shroom. Actually, kind of tight timing. And yeah, again, the start of the fog was looking really good. 50 seconds ahead for my already very good PB. So again, I'm feeling pretty good about the run. I have plenty of money, so I was able to buy the rake on 4.5. This is probably the first rake that you should skip if you feel like your money pace is not good. Again, you actually get 5 squashes here, and you have the rake. So on this first one, just squash, 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 and you're done. On this next level, you have about 3 more zombies than you do squashes, meaning that if you can have one of them rake, and if you can get a nice 2-for-1 value, or use your normal firepower. I messed that up. I should have been 1 second more patient. That would have been very good. This final wave is definitely the most difficult of all of them. You want to make sure you have a little bit of firepower in each row, just a hair. You really want to make sure you... Oh, fuck. Oh, damn it, Wormek. So let's rewind just a little bit and see what happened there. The number of mistakes that I made was truly astonishing. And what was a 50-second lead is not going to be a 50-second lead. So this level was actually pretty good. This section of 4.5 was very good, right? Squash, derp, 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 you know, squash, squash. Maybe could have let that guy walk into the rake, but I actually think the squash is a little faster. So not too bad. Not too bad. So now this level, again, you know, you want to set up, you want to do damage to a couple of the zombies the normal way. And then, again, just make sure that you're trying to get a little bit more value out of the squash. I missed this one, and I honestly forgot that I even had that one. So again, a slight mistake here that cost about 2 seconds. So there were a couple of mistakes that were made here. So I think what I was assuming initially was, I was like, wow, 4th row totally taken care of because I have a rake that'll take care of that bucket head. Awesome. The 5th row I can take care of immediately. I'll just put 2 normal pea shooters down there, or a snow pea or whatever. Great, my life will be good. What I forgot about though was the dancer zombie, and he spawned a dancer behind this. So what I initially thought was, I'm gonna take one of my I don't want that dancer zombie to to escape with nothing. And so what I really should have done was I should have used one of the hypnos on the Buckethead, just accepted the fact that the rake wasn't going to get used. Use another hypno, of course, on the dancer himself. That's very important. And then use one more hypno on the football or the Buckethead, and then you still have one left over sort of for a rainy day. But what I did was I saw this and I was like, wow, I have unlimited hypnos. This is going to be great. I'm going to solve all of my problems right now. Oh, look, what are my problems? The top row solved. What's my other problems? Ooh, that middle row kind of sucks. Solved. What's my other problem? Oh, this row. This looks a little bit bad. It's not that bad, but it's a little bit. Oh, shit. And then I just totally forgot about this. So this is what we call the walk of shame. The level would have been done, and I would have had a 106. I would have had a 106. Maybe a 107, right, with the little jingle and all that stuff at the end. And I effed up big time. So this is my angry slashing, my angry, please try to move. And he actually had pretty good movement speed. This actually could have been, and I actually got lucky there at the end. That could have cost me 5 more seconds. So as a result, I lost a whopping like 20 seconds, maybe 25 seconds because of that. Now I'm still 25 seconds ahead. That sort of goes to show, yeah, I really lost 25 seconds because of that mistake. So I do have the lawnmower, so the run wasn't dead. I thought about resetting it at that point because I'm like, I might have been able to like get to that point faster than it took to that zombie to make it to the very end, but it wasn't that bad. Luckily, he wasn't further back as well. He'd already started to like march forward a little bit. So that could have been worse. So I was very, very frustrated with sort of how that went. That was purely my mistake. That level should have been excellent. It should have been in the 107, 106, that kind of range, which is very, very good for that level. And I messed it up, and it's completely my fault. So again, it's happened to all of us at some point or another. Just really make sure that when you say a row is secure, make sure that the dancer zombie isn't out there that could change that row from being secured and dealt with to not being dealt with anymore. That's almost always been the problems that we've had. Again, this was a good example of like how, I wasn't even thinking about the pace. I truly was not thinking about the pace until I had time to like sit in my thoughts for 25 seconds and realize like, oh God, I just made a major, major, major mistake. Yep. Also, you'll see what we did here. We didn't plant the sun shrooms as far forward as we could have. This guy's kind of slow, but the reason we did that is because the best way to deal with the digger zombie is with a squash right when he appears. We used to take the jalapeno, but we simply don't have enough we don't have enough sun for that. You could use the doom too. You don't have enough sun for that. It's been theorized that we could take the potato mine on this level, try to guess what row he's going to appear in, and you could actually kill him right away. But the problem is you would have to sacrifice something for that. Would you give up the sea shroom? Would you give up the squash? But that's kind of a risk. Would you give up the plantern? Maybe. Certainly a task could do it. Oh, Warmech, no. And at this point I was like, oh God, like, please tell me I'm not like mentally breaking down. Like, I can't do that. This was actually shaping up to be nearly a gold split, and I only lost about, maybe 10 seconds because of that mistake there at the end. But that digger was a little bit too fast. It's very important that you use the squash, especially if the digger is in the bottom row. Use that doom right when you're sure that it's within the doom's radius, that it's within the digger's, that the doom is within the digger's radius. And that would do it. You could not take the scaredy? Maybe? I don't know. Yeah, I only used one Scaredy, and it helped a little bit. You know, so it's like, do you take the high risk, high reward play of like, you could maybe save 10 seconds and 25 sun by nailing the potato mine, but you could do that at the expense of costing you like 2 or 3 seconds on a couple other waves, maybe sometimes. Yeah, so the other thing you can do is put the doom in the fourth row, bottom row for the digger, but sometimes then you're more likely to miss the zombies that are on the top row if they're very, very slow, if you put them in that spot. Just given that like the zombies' hitboxes are like funny, they're like taller than they are like farther down. So it's almost always better to do the doom in the third row, but if you want to be safe, you can actually do the doom in the fourth row. So I perhaps should have done that as well, and then basically accepted the fact that if I missed it, I still could have had a couple of, you know, I still would have like good backups for the top row as well. So that's another way that I could have potentially but I thought I was going to get it. I thought it was within range, and I was frames away from it being in the right spot. So 4-7 is a giant pain in the ass that also we've sort of had a few strategy revisions over the course of the years. And I think this is probably the final one, although there's been some talk of whether the chomper should be taken, which after you see this one, we'll have to see whether those chomper strats are going to be given some new love. We'll have to see whether or not that's the thing that's going to happen. So anyway, the problem is in the second half, there's basically all these like slight probabilities on any given wave that you could get bucket heads or diggers, or you could get none of them, or you could get a bunch of cone heads, or you could get just a bunch of like random crap. So here I'm like, okay, I'm going to use the squash here, and then I'm going to save the doom if I get a digger, right? The squash has a lower cooldown, and I can still use one more doom before I really need to start saving it for the final wave. I have about one more left in me. And by the way, this wave sucked. It was the double cone head I was talking about. I hate that double cone head wave. I swear, like, it's going to be the death of me. And this one, I'm like, you know, I have 2 cone heads there. It's really a giant problem. Oh, and of course, the next wave, I get a bucket head. So did I misplay the odds? Maybe a little bit, but I also knew I had the squash off cooldown by then. So I'm like, okay, I can deal with this one with the squash and maybe have 1 or 2 more uses of the squash by the time we get to the final wave. You guys can see exactly where this is going, right? Exactly where this is going. Up. Another bucket head. Okay. This is all right. I have good firepower in that row. I can slow him down. I have another scaredy. You know, okay, this is gonna be just great. Then, you know, another wave where we have a cone head that's protected by that bucket head, so I'm not even able to like do a lot of damage to him, and kind of need to like continuously plant stuff. Oh yes, and then a digger right there at the very bottom, and then basically I need to like hedge my bets because there's no other way to deal with that digger. I need to hope against hope that there's no diggers and no bucket heads in the 9th wave, and there was, and it wasn't even in a good row. And because I had such crap in that top row, there was that scaredy even went down for a few minutes, and it was even in the same row as my plantern, and there was nothing I could do. The squash wasn't on cooldown, and the doom wouldn't have been worth it because the final wave would have been worse. And truly, this is truly a spectacle of horrendous RNG and how bad 4-7 can be, and why it really makes me want to take the chomper. Like, it really, really does. Like, I even have a chance of this final wave not being good either, although I do have the squash as a backup. Again, I tried to time that just right, and I had a slow mofo on the final wave that wouldn't get his ass on screen. I timed it right, and so I lost 21 more seconds because, and I was also up against a gold, so again, you know, I gotta, like, take that with a grain of salt, but, like, there were so many things that went wrong. Like, truly, I could play that level 100 more times and not get the same kind of luck I did in the second flag, and including the final wave that I did there. It was truly, truly, truly horrible. Truly horrible. And there's, like, all those, like, little things, and again, it wasn't even that bad compared to my goal time, which is, like, it sort of incorporates, like, a realistic amount of bad luck for 4-7, because you're always going to get some element of bad luck. But, like, that slight use of the doom was a mistake. The then not being able to use the chomper in the right spot was a mistake. The all those zombies showing up in the top row was bad luck. The 19th wave Conehead was bad. The 18th wave Digger was bad. And the slow-ass zombie on the very final wave, the 20th wave, was bad. Like, all that stuff going together, so I'm like, all right. So I had to, like, I actually took, like a deep breath, and, like I felt myself refreshed at the end of this level, and really felt good about the start right here. I did a really good job of getting my sunflowers out. I had good sun RNG. I had, I was able to get, like, all the sun out in a pretty reasonable time. I had a little bit of extra. I had a scaredy shroom right there, and I heard myself get the digger relatively early, and I'm like, huh. So again, another reason we leave that 9th column free is because we can almost always put a scaredy there and do enough damage to the digger to kill him, which we did exactly. And then I noticed, I was like, wow, I'm getting, like, a lot more regular zombies. Like, what is this? And it's actually okay to plant this 8th column lily pad here, because you actually kind of need it anyway. And then I was like, this is, like, really good. I'm getting all regular zombies here. I had the squash if I needed it for Conehead, so I still would have been in good shape. But I got a 205 huge wave of zombies appearing, and I'm like, this could be really, really good. I don't mess up the final wave. Waited for everyone to get on screen, including that little jerk at the top. Ooh, is that a 222? Is that a 222? And I forget what our global golds are. Let me take a quick look at that just for a moment. Just for a moment. Oh. It is a global gold. Great success. I wasn't 100% sure, actually. I wanted to do that await there, but I think I global golded that by about a half a second or so. So again, you know, I sort of taught, when I was talking to people in, you know, other people's chat about, like, this tutorial, I promised that there would be some ups and downs, and we are not done yet. We are not done yet with the ups and downs. So why did 4-8 go well? Again, I was very diligent about getting the puff shrooms out initially. Even though I did get one Conehead, I was able to get a pretty good 50% roll with it. I got enough firepower out to deal with the pogo zombie really, really early. I then was pretty lucky that I got 2 waves in a row of nothing but regular zombies, which are definitely faster to deal with. And the final wave worked out, like, just perfectly. The zombies were not too fast, not too slow, and I probably used it within, like, a half a second of when the perfect time to use it would have been. So again, in terms of how the fog level should be played, take a look at 1-8 in the same way that, for those of you that just joined us, take a look at 3-2. 3-2 is an excellent example of how the pool level should be played. And 2-7 was a good example of how the night level should be played if you get really, really bad luck. Actually 4-2 was very good for the fog levels too, so that's another one that you can take a look at. And 1-7 was excellent from the day levels of how the day level should be played and some of the different decisions that go on to there. Now, there's been plenty of bad levels, don't get me wrong, and I'm up against another gold on this level, so I was already like, oh god, am I gonna lose a little bit more time here as well? Because I knew the end of my fog levels were very, very good, although, you know, none of them had mistakes that were nearly as bad as some of the ones that we've seen there, but there you go. Again, I usually go for a little bit more than the traditional 12 sunflowers here, just because the you obviously need scaredies, you need magnets, you need blovers, and so a little bit more, 13, maybe 14 sunflowers can be pretty good. There wasn't a balloon zombie there, I don't think, but I just wanted to clear out the vision, just give myself that knowledge of, you know, where do I need to plant things. Again, you know, at this point, it's, you know, keep your puff shrooms, whether it's the night levels or the fog levels, always keep them on cooldown. Like, even if you're putting them in the 9th row or like a random 6th row or in the pool or wherever you are, just always plant those puff shrooms. That's a mistake that I sometimes see runners making as well, you know, not like getting those puffs out really at every moment that it's off cooldown. And now at this point, again, this level is all about sort of balancing how many scaredies do you use, how many blovers do you use. You know, I was even proactive with a magnet there, and I believe it ends up paying off. I have to to listen here. I really feel like it paid off. You know, helped me with a 50% rule. Wish I could have used that blower a little faster, but it's actually okay. Again, getting a third row of Scaredies, absolutely nothing wrong with that. I really have not gotten many metallic zombies whatsoever. You can get pogos, you can get bucket heads, and sometimes they come in really by the hundreds, and that's never a very good time. Yep, yeah, and this ninth wave just mow them right down. So again, a pretty good level. Again, I am up against a gold. I'm not, you know, I'm trying to keep my expectations realistic here, but you know, that's what we do. And again, make sure you have 125 sun. You really should. At this point, make sure all the zombies get on screen. You can see I was a little conservative there. I maybe waited about 1 second longer than I really had to. But there we go. All right, and now we're into Hell on Earth part 1. It's a 3-part series called Hell on Earth, and it starts with 410 and appropriately starts in the dark. So, very good. So I actually got a really nice break here. Kind of a level saver in some ways that the Conehead appeared in the same row as the Rake. And so for those of you, like it's really important to remember to buy the Rake every 3 levels. And the one that you buy it on is actually 4.9, so that you're guaranteed to have it for 4.10, because you don't have the option to buy it at the beginning of 4.10. It's sort of the same with like 3.9 and some of the other levels. Yeah, Hell on Earth prequel is 3.10. Yep, that is true. So again, really what we hope for the beginning is firepower. Towards the middle, we hope for magnets. And towards the end, we hope for, yeah, you can see even getting 1 magnet is a massive, massive difference between getting no magnets. Sometimes, basically, this has sort of the same, I was talking about like the value of each wave. This has the same logic, except the bucket heads can come much earlier in the first half. They figure, oh, we're giving you all this firepower and you don't have to worry about sun. You know, just go. So at this point, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start demanipulating the magnets. I really want, like, if the game's going to give me a lot of magnets, like, I want them. I'm not fooling around. Like, this is what we're going to need. It's also okay to place, you can see I got a little unlucky there. There were actually 2 zombies that slowed down that 50% rule by quite a bit. You also want to try to have 1 cactus per column. The reason for that, we get blowovers in the second half. And so I have actually taken a death on this level back when I was a little less aware of some of the problems. You have the blowover, of course, to help, but having the cactus there is very important. And again, I'm like, at this point, let me put down both magnets. The reason we put them towards the middle is the magnet also has like a 5x5 square area that it affects, meaning that if you put it towards the very top, you're not going to be able to get the zombies at the bottom. But if you put it in the middle, 5 out of the 6 rows are covered by that magnet. And again, absolutely nothing wrong with, you know, usually we try to demanipulate the pumpkins, but if you're at all worried about a pumpkin eating a starfruit or a pumpkin eating a magnet, just use it. Like, don't hesitate, just use it the moment that you see that zombie start to creep up on it a little bit, and do it. Yes. And this, again, was a little bit unfortunate. I wish I had 1 more lily pad. I could have put a the cactus there and done a little bit more damage, but I didn't have like a lot. I should have really put another starfruit at the top and the bottom. I could have done a little bit more damage to that row earlier. So a slight mistake there by not quite planning things out the best that I could have. And that was actually my 4th magnet. So now I actually do put it in the top and the bottom rows just to help protect them a little bit, just to sort of give them that coverage that they need. And yeah, at this point, I have all my rows covered with the cacti. That's very good. I have a couple extra blowovers. When I hear the sort of squeak of the... I actually almost lost that magnet. That would have been quite dumb. But this is actually looking pretty good. The firepower is at least average. The magnets are above average. I haven't gotten 3 trillion sea shrooms. I actually did get 1 or 2, but I think I planted them. I haven't gotten an abundance of unnecessary blowovers, which is nice. I've gotten about the right number of pumpkins, which at this point I'm like, I'm just going to plant them. I really don't need more magnets. I don't really need to manipulate anything in particular at this point. I just need the level to work out well. And the last thing to do is, because you don't have a great solution to the zombies in the pool, towards the end of the level, start to prioritize a little bit of extra firepower in the pool. And that could include like some second and fifth wave starfruit to help, just to help like give yourself some coverage in the pool, because the final wave, you get not only the normal number of zombies that appear on there, but you get those extra ones that like pop out of the pool. So you have on average 2 or 3 more zombies to deal with in the pool than you do in any of the other rows specifically. So you can actually see that's why right there I planted the cactus. Because I knew that the pool was going to need some firepower, and the 9th wave anyway was going to need some firepower too. Try to make sure you save 1 blover for the final wave. That way you don't need to kill any of the balloon zombies by hand. They're not taking up damage that would normally be meant for other zombies. And all things considered, this is looking like a pretty good 410. Hell on Earth Part 1 has been resolved. And I had too many magnets. Isn't that funny? That was my 7th magnet. My 7th. Which is insane. And again, normally anything below the 515, normally anything below the 530 marker, and you're kind of like, okay, this is at least okay. Below the 515 marker, you're like, damn, which is what we got. We got a 510. And then anything below the 5-minute marker is like beyond ridiculous. You know, you kind of need like exactly the right plants at the right times, and good 50% rules, and, you know, good distribution of your firepower, and like all this crazy stuff that's sort of impossible to play. So, yeah. So yeah, that's the value of the balloon zombie, or the blover, is that it deals with the balloon zombies without needing to take away your firepower from anything else. So at this point, I'm like, you know, what on earth is going to happen to this run? I knew there was some time saved to save in 5.4. That wasn't played optimally by me in my PB, but I also got a global gold in 5.2. So I was expecting to maybe lose about 15 seconds in 5.2. So this level's kind of an interesting one, and I don't know if the community is 100% in agreement on the perfect strategy, you know, at all times. It's, you know, how much do you prioritize your sun versus how much do you prioritize a couple of cabbage pulls versus what zombies do you kill with the, you know, with the potato mine or the squash? You know, some of those questions still remain to be unanswered. You know, I say, like, if I'm able to more or less constantly produce sun, you see I actually had a little bit of a dry spell with the sun right here, which was unfortunate, and then way too much right here. You definitely, you know, that right balance between firepower and you know, sun production is a very fine one. At this point, you know, using an early jalapeno is great, especially against a conehead, almost always against a conehead. You know, whereas here I'm like, okay, if I can put that there and then get at least 1 more squash, I'll be able to hopefully satisfy the 50% rule. Maybe the game will even give me a good 50% rule. I can keep up with some sun production, but this kind of wasn't like the ideal arrangement of zombies, and I'm like a little behind on sun and a little behind on firepower, so I just felt like a little unsatisfied with this level. It wasn't that it was really that bad. I don't know if this was really worth it or not, but I was hoping to be able to put up some more cabbage pults, and so I didn't want it to like spend too long cooling down, and I wasn't like that worried about my sun because I knew the sunflower was off cooldown, and I probably wasn't going to be planting too many more sunflowers anyway, so yeah, once you start getting a lot of sun out, it's definitely prudent to put a couple of repeaters in any row that has a cone head. Really, I mean, any row that you can afford it, but the main priority is those cone heads. I could have used a jalapeno here and might have had it back for the final wave. I actually got a really, really bad 50% rule there. I forgot about that 50% rule was like just the worst ever. So here I knew that these 2 waves were going to be done right around the same time, so whatever. You know, I could put a little bit more firepower, but again, they literally died in unison, so it's like, yeah. 13 sunflowers, Wasp is saying, I tend to agree. It really depends on like your early sun RNG and sort of how you have to react. It could be as low as 12, or I've even had as many as 15 and have gotten really good levels before. So this is a little bit less set in stone, I would say. So here I'm like, okay, that's the easy jalapeno. There I'm like squash, and then I figured I could get the repeater down. I should have done that in a different order. I think I should have gone repeater, jalapeno, cabbage pult, and I think I could have optimized the damage of that a little bit better. But yay, I have enough sun and I'm able to purchase. I actually meant to purchase the Gloom Shroom there, which is a slight mistake that I didn't. You should always, always, always purchase the Gloom Shroom on 5.2. There is no other level that is correct to purchase it on. Because sometimes, like, if you purchase it earlier, it'll, like, it throws off, like, my perspective a little bit. It makes me, like, pick plants slower. So always purchase it on 5.2. You get a free trip to the shop. And you have to buy a rake there anyway. Obviously, if you don't have the money yet, you can wait till 5.4 or even 5.6 to buy it. But that's, yeah, unless you absolutely have to buy it on 5.4 or 5.6, in which case, you know, if money, you know, forbids you from doing it, then that's okay. So, yeah. Oh yeah, we'll see. We'll see whether or not you like 5.9 in any percent either. We'll see how well 5.9 treats us in this run. Very intrigued. So this strategy I've become a little bit more comfortable with, and that's basically constant production of sunflowers, and then the second zombie killed via a forward flower pot, preferably in the 5th row if it's fast, or in the 6th row if it's a little bit slower. So I think that's so again, I think that's pretty good. Wow, 5 to 7 Garg, or 7 to 8 Gargs. That is actually ridiculous. And usually then, if you do the strategy by this point, you should be able to again have constant sunflower production down and have gotten a repeater out. So again, one mistake I see people make fairly often is they don't prioritize the sun production enough on this level. Really, again, like, you need a lot of sun to deal with chompers. You need the repeaters, you need cherries, you need chompers, you need flower pots, you need a lot of stuff. And a lot of that isn't possible if you don't do, like, quite the right job managing your sun. A little bit unfortunate here that that I didn't have the squash available, but again, that happens sometimes. So what do? I say, okay. I really should have done this from the beginning. This was like a 5-second mistake. I don't know why I didn't just, like, put that in the 8th column and just, like, blow him away from the very beginning. Like, that was silly. So here I'm like, again, more sunflowers, and I knew I was going to kill him with the squash. These 8th and under the new strategy that we use in this level, these 8th and 9th column flower pots are way more important than column 5 or column 6. Like, it's like not even close. Yeah. So now at this point, I know I'm on the 9th wave, and I'm like, ugh, you know, I got, like, all that stuff kind of in separate rows, and I don't really, like, a great solution. I mean, I have, like, the squash coming off cooldown. Oh, whoops, I missed that. So, like, there's just a couple of, like, really dumb things that I did in this level that, like, you know, hopefully wouldn't happen. And, you know, normally I shoot for sub 3 minutes on this level now, and this is, like, yeah, 306, 307. It wasn't horrible, but just a couple of things that maybe didn't quite go my way. And then again, that mistake there at the end, and the mistake with the vaulter, like, a couple of little things that I actually think realistically could have shaved a lot of time off this. I had to use this a little bit earlier than I would have liked, and now I'm like, oh, of course now I have a bucket head and I have no solution for it. So again, a couple of mistakes on this level that I'm not afraid to admit were really more about my mistakes than anything the game gave me. And, you know, again, I wasn't prepared enough for that Conehead. I should have taken care of him much earlier. I was more prepared for this Buckethead. I wanted to use this just so that it came off cooldown. I don't know if that was the right move or not. It saved a little bit of sun, maybe not a ton. This one I'm like, you know what, I really want to deal with it a lot faster, but maybe I shouldn't have done that either. This guy I'm like, all right, we'll chomper this. We do have a solution for this row, so I'm really not too worried about it, although I'm going to lose this chomper. So I really need to do a better job of, like, trying to balance all this stuff. I actually am very happy with this cherry. This was probably the best decision I think I made in this particular level that I was very, very happy with. Again, really try to get those potato mines down. You can protect them with a chomper, with the jalapeno if you absolutely have to. This one I'm kind of like, you know, I wanted to get them both with the squash, and I just didn't. So then this 50% rule was bad, and this guy was slow, and I was like, you know, I just felt off on this level. Like, it wasn't like I had, like, a bad strategy going into it, and I really, you know, this chomper was even a little bit early. I should have had, yeah, okay, I did do that. I had this guy jump, but then I didn't have the flower pot in place, and I'm like, God damn it. You know, like, this was a good example of, like, a level that, like, there was no one mistake or no, like, No major mistake. None of the mistakes individually probably cost more than 5 seconds. Oh yeah, and then a little bit of trolling on this final wave. That was very pleasant for me. And then, oh, whoops, you know, that Chomper couldn't even, you know, the final wave even, like, trolled me a little bit. So I'm like, you know, I just, like, it was just a bad level all around. And it was really more my fault than the game's fault, definitely. So I would say look at my current personal best, which may change at the end of this run. We will have to see. But look at my current personal best for how this strategy is supposed to work, because I'm not happy with how I demonstrated it. I'm not happy with how I played it, and I do think that there are better examples of how to play 5-2 using the jalapeno strat that we have. So, yep. Goal time is not fixed, and again, we'll have to see if an adjustment is needed at the end of the run. So there we go. Yep. So now the goal time is probably about maybe 45 seconds to a minute ahead of where it really should be. Like, I knew I was a little bit behind at this point, not hugely behind, but at least like a little bit behind. It wasn't like the end of the world, but I think no, I think it was I think it was okay. So again, our fifth column, if he's fast, our fifth column, Potato Mine, I do like this. Again, really lets us focus on the firepower. You know, lets it do really well. Yeah. And then, well, that's kind of convenient. I had him appear in the same row. And again, this is an example. Some people would have waited for the sun for the repeater, but it doesn't make that much difference. And this was the difference between me getting one sunflower out. I actually want to stop because this is really important. And I think this is a mistake that I see, like, a lot of the runners, and again, this is not to insult anyone, that are maybe in the, like, 5th place to 10th place tier, a mistake that I see them make. I think I did this right, and I'll sort of demonstrate. I'll demonstrate why. So I planted. I had about 150 sun when the 3rd zombie appeared, and that's sort of like it's a very critical decision to be made, because a lot of times what people do is they'll stop producing sun, wait for 50 sun, plant the repeater, wait for 50 more sun, and then plant the sunflower. But what you've actually done at that point is you've literally shorted yourself one sunflower for the rest of the level. Like, you're now about 8 to 10 seconds behind your sunflower planting from what you normally would be. Not to mention the fact that, like, your future sun production is a little bit slower. So, like, this is a good example of, like, almost like letting a zombie go. Like, if you're in a scenario where, like, you're safe to plant the repeater just a couple of seconds later, it's really worth it to plant the sunflower first. And again, I'll show you exactly what that looks like, because it is very important. We'll go back to here, whatever. So again, this was right. You know, I had this, and even if this pot hadn't been in this position, right, that's even more so the case, because now you need to plant a pot and a repeater and continue with the sun production. So this is a good example of, again, where I see some other players start to fall behind in the roof levels in a way that I think is not entirely optimal. So again, at this point, I've planted the sunflower. So again, now look, I'm at this, like, great critical mass that a lot of people would say, ooh, I have 125 sun. Here's a sun here. I'm really close to a repeater. But you're sacrificing an entire sunflower for not doing that. And I really think it matters. It's like, that's like 10% of your sun production for the rest of the level. And it really could make a pretty big difference, you know, over the course of the run. So look at how this works out for me, right? I have 200 sun, like, right now, right? Like, this sunflower is going to produce one, and I could have planted a repeater right here. But I say, you know what? It's not going to take me that long to get 50 more sun. It really isn't. 2, 3, 4 seconds. It's better for me to plant a sunflower, now get the 50 sun, which, oh wow, it took 3 seconds. It took no time at all. And again, you won't always be that lucky. And now look, basically the instant that this was off cooldown, well, I got even more aggressive here because I saw, like, all this sun come up at once. But this sunflower was never on cooldown for, like, more than a second or two. So I now have, like, 9 or 10 sunflowers at a time where someone else that didn't utilize this only has 8. So again, this is very high level stuff. Don't worry about it if you're a new runner. Like, keep planting your sun, do the best you can. It's not a huge deal, but like this is something that I noticed YMB doing on his run that I've started to incorporate in my runs that make a really big difference. It makes a really big difference. And again, here's another example. Like this one, I knew I was going to be able to plant just one of these, but then I'd still be able to get the next sunflower down. So of course I do. It's really about a prioritization of sunflowers. And you can see I'm even thinking ahead because I'm like, ooh, I might run out of flower pots. Time to start planting more flower pots because we really want to get in that like 18 sunflower range for this level that you do. So again, it's not something that like at first observation has a clear answer, right? Because you never really want to sacrifice 4 seconds on a wave if you don't like absolutely have to. So again, here I kind of make the same decision. I could have put a flower pot down here, could have put a repeater here, satisfy the 50% rule, squash this guy. But instead, I'm like, I have a much less expensive alternative in planting the squash, and I can continue with my sunflower production and also keep up with my flower pot production relatively well as well. And again, this guy, I'm not too worried about him. Like I can just deal with him later. Only now I'm like, oh crap, I actually am starting to fall behind a little bit, but that's okay. I have a squash coming off cooldown. I have I got a little unlucky that there were so many of these that were in the same wave. So again, here I kind of like I was in a flower pot situation, but I'm trying to plant those sunflowers as fast as I possibly can. And again, I feel like it worked out for the best. So now I had another idea that crossed my mind. I'm sure you guys can see it. And this was one of the best timed cherries in the entire run. These two zombies, this one was a step away from not being in range, and this one was a step away from not being in range. I got a good number of flower pots out, good firepower, good start. I'm very, very pleased with how this worked out. I always focused on the 50% rule. I didn't get overwhelmed. I didn't like cut off my sun production too much. I feel really, really good about how that was played. It's not always going to work. Good night, by the way, Neku. I'm glad to have you aboard. Hope you enjoy the content. It's not always going to work out that way. Sometimes you're going to get trolled, but like honestly, it's okay. And again, this wave I sort of saw like all of this situation. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to get the repeater down. I'm not going to mess around. I'm not going to chomper this. Like I think it'll be okay. Although in hindsight, I kind of wish I chompered it because that was very, very slow. Again, perfect cherry spot, perfect cherry timing, right in that like 13th to 14th wave time frame. Use a squash, get it on cooldown. You even got a little bit of value out of that potato, which I wasn't worried. Again, and now at this point, it's almost like 3-2 and 3-3 and the rest of the levels. The repeaters are not here to help us with the 50% rule. I used a jalapeno there because there were 2 zombies in the same row and I didn't have the squash available. There's a lot of zombie. Really, I just need the repeaters to like deal with like the leftover with whatever my instance can't deal with to get a good 50% rule. So again, here I'm like, oh yeah, either one of these would have been a great solution for that. And now I'm like, okay, I think I can do this. Although now I'm like, ugh, I knew I was in a bit of a problem. We just kind of got the zombies, like, nothing in this row, nothing in this row. Like, I sort of ran out of, like, flower pots relative to, like, where my firepower's at and what zombies I got. So that was probably a slight mistake. I would have liked to have a few more flower pots available for particularly that 9th wave, but as you can see, the strategy is looking very good. I'm going to be pretty close to my gold time, barring some sort of disaster in the final wave, which unfortunately it looks like we actually are getting a disaster here. I should have used the jalapeno here and squashed this guy, so as a result I'm going to lose about a second or two compared to what I could have. But if I played that final wave correctly, I would have been very, very close to my my time last time. And again, with a couple of those little tweaks to that one bad 50% rule that I was telling you about, I think I should have used a chomper a little bit earlier. All those things put together, I think I would have I really think I would have been in a position to get nearly a gold, really maybe even get in the low 5 minutes on that level. So now we move on to, again, in addition, so the major strategy changes that we talked about were taking the early the extra sunflower on 2-2. The potential strategy change for 2-4, which is still up for debate. Some of the other maybe strategy changes that I've sort of talked about on and off. Taking the jalapeno on 5-2, which we didn't used to do. And now 5-4, which by far has the biggest and the most risky strategy change. You can see here, I really don't fool around. You know, as long as I can constantly produce sunflowers, just get that squash down, get them on cooldown, because we're going to need a lot of squashes for this level in order for things to work out just perfectly. We use the Gloom strat, which we used to use on 5-4 way back in the day, but there's a twist. You'll notice we took the pumpkin, and that was not a mistake. We use the pumpkins on this level, particularly because we put our glooms in the 9th row. There's nothing inherently dangerous, and this is what we do like in some of the survivals levels. I actually use this to preemptively slow him down a little bit because I was predicting that I wasn't going to have quite enough sun and I was going to need to stall him just a little bit, and maybe one more and I could stall him and save that. So now again, I feel really good about this. Again, you're in a sort of dangerous position at this point, and it's pretty important to make sure that you prioritize the pumpkin relatively early. The reason being that, like right after you plant the gloom, because the gloom has a 50-second cooldown and the pumpkin has a 30-second cooldown. So you really want to make sure the pumpkin is placed within 20 seconds. I can do math, I promise. Of when it was of when the gloom was placed, just to make sure that you have both of them ready by the time the next one comes around. I got really unlucky here. I was very disappointed with how that worked out. This is really the only bad wave that I could have possibly gotten. Even getting a Conehead, I think, would have been a little bit better. Now, of course, I make up for it with an outstanding wave, and you can really see the value of the 9th column gloom there. I don't use the whatchamacallit there, because I'm hoping I really need, and again, it was really the right decision to hold off and not use the coffee bean as early as I could have, because I knew that there was a chance that I was putting that at risk. And now also I wanted to stall this out a little bit, and you can see I was very happy with how I played that. I had about a 3-minute first flag, which is very good. Not quite as many sunflowers as I'd normally like, but I have 2 glooms, 2 pumpkins. I even have this doom out. I have one of the fume shrooms out. So things are really looking okay. And at this point, I'm like, I don't think I can mess with this guy. He's getting the squash. The pogos are by far the most dangerous zombie that you can get on this level, and it's really, it's really very interesting. I let it take a little bit of damage, then I put the pumpkin on, and now again, I'm at this point, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna wait because I really want to get the gloom back on cooldown. There's no need to use the coffee bean any earlier than I did. And the advantage of this setup is it will almost always, two glooms will almost always kill the pogo in time, particularly if he has like a couple other things to hop over. But that still means that the 1st and the 5th rows are dangerous. You'll also notice that we're not doing well with our pumpkin situation, so that's why I actually placed the pumpkin very soon here, hoping that by the time the gloom is off cooldown, I'll be able to get another pumpkin and potentially protect another row. So the other reason that we plant these dooms as early as we do is sometimes, like, if you get like 3 pogos in a row and they're all like in the less than ideal row, or you get a couple of football zombies in the second half, which you certainly can on this level. We'll have to pay attention to that. Here I take a bit of a chance. I really should have placed that pumpkin right away. I sort of had a little bit of hesitation, but I'm like, oh shit, I don't have enough sun. So now I'm like, okay, what do I do? All right, I'll place the gloom, but I'm still worried about that top. And then I'm like, oh god, that had even fewer hit points than I wanted to. And now I'm like, okay, what do I do? So I planted this knowing that there was probably going to be some problem, and I was maybe going to have to squash it, or maybe have to use one of my dooms. And now I'm like, yep, this is exactly it. And I knew that because this guy hadn't taken that much damage, I actually got a 2-for-1 right here. Huge value out of that squash, and absolutely positively saved it. Now I'm like, all right, I can save him by using a doom. Saved it one more time, and now I have the pumpkin back, and I still have 2 dooms to protect me in either the top rows or the bottom rows if I get some like rogue football zombie or other zombie. So I'm very happy with how I played that. Again, I don't recommend this strategy to people who are playing for the first time. Feel free to put your glooms back a row, or feel free to use the Torchwood strategy that we used in the previous level. That was probably unnecessary. And I realized, I was like, oh crap, I actually kind of needed that Doom and the Squash for the final wave. That was like unnecessarily aggressive. But I still felt pretty good about this level overall. It is possible to get a sub 6-minute level. But I waited a little bit. I was like, oh, I hope this top one's on screen. And actually, even though he wasn't, he died right away because it wasn't a Conehead. And as you can see, I got a massive 7-second gold, 6-second gold right here, and almost 30 seconds saved over my PB, which is really, really good. And I don't think I had the Glooms in 5-4 for my PB. I think I had money problems, but now I don't. Oh no, I think I just gotten enough money, but I didn't have the rake. I didn't have the rakes in those levels. I think that was the problem. Yep. Yeah, Torchwoods are usually worth it for the 3 flag levels as opposed to the jalapenos that you saw there. So I do feel good about the Torchwood strategy compared to the other strategies that we had on that level. But now it's up to 5-5 for what we call Living Hell Part 2. This is basically, in my opinion, and I really believe this, it is maybe the highest RNG and the highest skill cap level in the entire run. And I really mean that. Like, there are definitely times I've seen people lose this run to RNG, or they play a little greedy or something and then they get punished for it. But there is also a truly almost limitless skill cap because the 50% rule still applies. But how do you balance, when do you use your cherries? When do you use your chompers? How do you manipulate the conveyor? How well do you protect the chompers using each other's? When do you use the pumpkins? Do you use a cherry right here or not? How well do you prepare for the 9th waves? All that stuff really comes together, and every wave really feels like its own battle of all these variables going on in your head that you alone have control over. This year I really wanted to make sure I was able to use a chomper there, so I played it a little bit safe, a little bit conservative. I really didn't need to place that flower pot, but I knew I was a little low on flower pots, so I kind of wanted to manipulate them a little bit. And you can see right here, all right, this is looking good. I got that chomper back. I knew there were 2 zombies right there, so I just wanted to make sure that that was safe and that I got the 50% rule. Now I'm like, okay, definitely have to protect one of these. And again, you also need to keep track of the zombies, because the zombies that existed in previous waves, I knew that pumpkin was on short life, so I knew with a cherry I would be able to satisfy the 100% rule for the 9th wave and move on to the 1st flag. So overall, this was very good. Again, chompers can protect each other, not even on the same space, but from one behind. So in this case, it was basically a chomper to save a chomper, but now I basically have 2 of them on cooldown, and hopefully I can get some value out of that a little bit later, in the run. I think I just realized something. Because this is a recording, I can spam my own chat. Isn't that fun? Again, I've done a good job getting 50% rules so far. But now I was like, oh crap, I really should have saved that chomper. That was really dumb. Or I should have I just wasn't happy. And I missed them both. Oh, Jesus, Warmech, what are you doing? I should have just put the flower pot right there. Almost didn't even get the 50% rule. Now I'm like, I have to do something to... This top row is getting completely out of control. I didn't save the bottom row. Now I'm like, am I going to take a death on the bottom row? So I decided to use a cherry bomb there and sacrifice that chomper. Really kind of putting the whole run on the line right here. Things could have been, again, this level can go from looking good to looking bad. Now I have you saw I circled it right there. I have a ladder zombie coming, so that's why I sort of set this up the way that I did. I misplayed the chomper, and now I'm like, oh, F. This is potentially really, really bad. And now I'm on the 9th wave, and I'm like, holy crap, how do I deal with this? Really what I should have done was dealt with these zombies first, hoped for a cherry, and then sort of set, but I'm like, I may not even get a cherry. Now I may lose this chomper, and I'm like, oh, Jesus, I just can't. I felt like I couldn't get out of my own way at the end of the second half. I made a lot of mistakes, and, I didn't get a lot of cherries in the second half. They were all in the first half. But now I'm like, this has gone from bad to worse. This is looking really, really bad. Yeah, and now I'm like, I shouldn't even try to save that. Now I'm like, you know what, I waited too long anyway. So with the exception of that 17th, 18th, and 19th wave, I recommend sort of following what I did on this level, but then like, you know, I made a couple of like just literally clicking and execution mistakes. Huge value cherry, absolute, complete and total value. I clicked out of the screen. So now I'm like, okay, I can do this, and then I can, you know, take care of the final wave. So I'm actually happy with how I played the final wave. So all in all, a sub 5 minute 5-5 is not bad, not great, and it was better than my PB for sure. But I hope I pointed out enough of those mistakes and how I like didn't do a good job like prioritizing some of the lives of the chompers, and then the misclick and the misplayed cherry. The misplayed cherry was huge, was really, really huge. Like that probably could have single-handedly like saved me 10 or 20 seconds on that level alone, not to mention some of the other stuff. So oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Glad you like the entertainment. This is a pre-recorded run, so I do know what's going to happen, which sort of like helps me speak a little bit better about it, or at least I have some idea of what's going to happen. But you know, I do like the ability to really kind of focus on, you know, the talking part of the run and chat and sort of all that stuff. I wonder if he beat PBs. Well, believe it or not, when I was playing this, I was wondering exactly the same thing. I'm like, you know, I saved some time on 5-4. 5-5 was relatively cooperative. And remember, I was 50 seconds ahead in the fog levels. I was then 50 seconds behind after 5-3. And now I'm basically even, right? I'm basically even. And the, you know, my best possible time is still in the 325 range. Not that that's like that realistic. But, you know, now, again, you see what I do here. Sometimes if the zombie appears in the second or fourth row, this is very important, you can actually place the doom a little bit early, and still get your sunflowers out. And now I'm like, you know what? I could squash him. I also use the code future here. If you type in future, literally F-U-T-R, F-U, T-U-R-E, you'll get these sunglasses. And what this does is a very important mechanic that increases our risk, but also increases the speed. Look what happens to this zombie. He eats the garlic and then immediately moves. Normally he goes through this, like he eats the garlic, ugh, and then he moves to the other row. But as a result of the future code, for whatever reason, these sunflower zombies really don't like the garlic, and it saves about 1 to 1.5 seconds on the animation of the zombie to move into the middle rows. Therefore, you're able to do more damage to those zombies more quickly, and you're able to get faster 50% rules. Look at this. I'm able to get a double. I killed him so fast. Did you see how fast I killed him? And he was the one that appeared in the garlic row. That was really fast. And so this is, again, another one of the like strategy improvements that we had. I wanted to use that right there just because like I really wanted to save that flower pot, just in case I had a good opportunity for a squash later on. The risk is, though, because you push the zombies into that row sooner, you also risk the zombies eating your gloom shroom. So as a result, it is more important than ever to try to put a couple of fumes out in your fifth wave. The other thing you can do, you see how very quick I was right there? I actually saved the flower pot because I was very quick in getting that. The 11th wave on this level will always have a whatever you call them. So it's very important to try to get the squash out as soon as you can and make sure that you have the squash being available. So this was excellent. And I even like, I actually meant to use the coffee bean on this, instead used it on the doom, although I got a little bit of value out of the doom. And now I'm like, oh crap, am I even going to have the doom for the final wave? Because I played it like a little bit late. So that was actually a pretty big mistake on this level, but it could be one of those mistakes that worked. You know, like I was able to use one more doom than I otherwise would have, but it maybe came at the risk of like the doom's not quite being off cooldown by the time the 9th wave comes around. At this point, you can see the setup is really complete. You know, there's really no issues whatsoever. Save a squash in case the 9th wave, or in case you get another basketball launcher. But really, like, you know, all is well with this. You know, and And it's really okay. So I did decide to use the Doom here. What I did when I waited, you can see this zombie just moved on screen. I was a hair too late, but I had so much damage there that it really didn't matter. And I did have the Doom back for the final wave. I knew it was going to be close, but it is possible to get 3 Dooms off in this level if you're very proactive and sort of use them the way we do. This 8th column, 3rd row Doom will hit all the zombies on screen if you time it just right, even if the bungees drop the zombies in the 5th row, like you saw right there. So anyway, so again, I got a gold split there. It was very good. It wasn't absolutely perfect. Again, that Doom Shroom situation was, let's just say, interesting to say the least. I almost wonder if like you could proactively place a Doom on wave 10, then use it to immediately get the launcher on wave 11. I honestly feel like that might save some time. But anyway, I'm just sort of like theorizing at this point. So anyway, so again, and now I'm ahead, and a minute ahead of my goal split, which is a minute behind my PB. So again, really, I'm sort of right on track for exactly what I want to be. So again, in terms of like, again, we've talked about like a couple of general levels now of like, what levels have I played well in each world, and what levels haven't I played well? So examples so far of good levels. On the roof levels, I would say 5-4 was pretty good, and 5-7 was outstanding, and 5-2 was bad. On the fog levels, 4-2 was good, 4-8 was outstanding, and 4-7 was bad. On the pool levels, 3-2 was absolutely amazing, like truly almost perfect. And 3-9 and 3-1 were a little bit shaky. On the night levels, I would say, I think it was it 2, it wasn't 2-3. 2-7 was good, despite getting horrible grave RNG. And I think 2-9, I think I played relatively well, given what I had. And then in the day levels, I would say 1-7 was excellent. And 1-6, I remember there was like a couple of misclicks, and I got like a bunch of alters and things like that too. So again, if you want to like cut this tutorial down to like just 10 levels, like the good and the bad on each world, I'm not going to try to remember or repeat them, but just make sure you do that, because those are that was good. Again, okay to use a squash and get an immediate 50% rule, but make sure that you have the squash, that you don't use the squash any later than the 9th wave, because, well, actually, no, I thought we were on 5-7. Use the squash whenever you want. Feel free. You have complete freedom. You have absolute permission by me. So, again, now it's just, you know, get a couple of the fumes down, make sure you get the glooms down. And on this level, because it's a 3-flag level, I actually like to have like 16 to 17 sunflowers. Some people stop at 15, you know, but again, it's a little bit of a longer level, and more fumes means more 50% rules. I actually guessed this right. I was sort of preparing to use a Doom there, actually, and instead managed to nail that pretty perfectly. Another thing that's very important, try to get an early Doom down as well. Sometimes the bungee zombies like to come very fast on this level. This was actually kind of scary. Took a little more damage on that. And again, that's an example where the future code can actually be a little bit dangerous. So again, not necessarily recommended for beginners, but if you're feeling, you're feeling pretty comfortable with the run, definitely do that. Again, now, yep, get those fumes up. I give you permission, I do. And now I'm like, oh shit. Yeah, this guy was looking pretty scary. So now I've actually taken a fair amount of damage on both of the... dang it, Warmech. Ugh. So again, kind of a mistake there. Part of the problem was that I had placed the gloom before I saw the ladder zombie, but after I'd placed a flower pot, so I couldn't even block it with a flower pot. That was very, very disappointing. I almost should have doomed that in hindsight. Like, that's how scary that stuff was. And you can see I actually got another squash out and took care of the... So I've done a good job taking care of those guys. And now, again, I'm going to wait for the 9th wave, 19th wave, blow it up. Oh... Oops, that wasn't the 19th wave. All right, Warmech, so you have so many dooms, why don't you just blow it up? Again, not having the gloom, I was like, I really want these, like, this 19th wave to go fast. So again, This was another mistake, but it was kind of a mistake that worked. Again, I seem to be quite good at those today, or at least on the roof levels for sure. Awkward. Yep, that's for sure. So again, like, I'm still kind of in a dangerous position because some of these, you know, I actually should have been more proactive there. I think I could have gotten him a little bit sooner as well. Oh, yay, Warmech's third diamond, yay. Not quite enough for the roof cleaners, but that's, you know, that's how we go, especially where we have the rake to buy and now, unfortunately, again, I did get a little bit unlucky with this guy. I'm not going to get a great 50% roll here, but the bungees have been fairly cooperative. Just be careful that those bungees can and will try to take your gloom shrooms. So trying to make sure that they're as protected as possible is very, very important. Yep. Yeah, it's a good habit to get into, to try to count the waves. It can be a difference maker, like just really making sure, like, you don't need to count every wave, but like you should really try to have like a count of when those like 9th and 19th waves are coming on. Again, use those extra squashes, get yourself a 50% rule, and continue with things as normal. As you can see, I still have a doom for the final wave. Still trying to protect some of my zombies a little bit. Now, I saw I had this guy, so I'm like, all right, I really have to hit him. I really got to get him. And now, of course, it's the 9th wave, but I stupidly... Why did I use the coffee bean on that fume? This was like another 5-second mistake on this level. Why did I do that? Again, this level could have been really good. I didn't protect the gloom. I stupidly used my dooms at irrational times. I used the coffee bean at a really dumb time. Now here's hoping I don't mess up the final wave, because I had a lot of time to save on this level. Okay, and I didn't mess it up. But nonetheless, I'm totally convinced that not the game, but I made at least 15 seconds worth of mistakes on that level. That easily could have been a gold and easily could have put me, like, you know, probably in the, like, 35 to 40 second, maybe 45 seconds ahead of my PB. Like, that's actually, because that I had a lot of time save on that level, so I really feel like that's actually as good as it could have been. Like, that was really a major difference. Anyway, time for water, Warmech. We don't want you getting laryngitis on this. Wasp says gargantuars. Funny you should say that, because 5-8, first level that we have with gargantuars. Very interesting. Yeah, counting messes with your ability to focus on important stuff. It's true. So there is a balance. Like, you know, you could say like 1, 2, 3 out loud, you know, but sometimes like just being aware of like the visual cues and stuff, right? Like knowing about on a 2 flag level and a 3 flag level of like where everything looks like it's supposed to be, that can be as important, I think, as counting the waves out loud. And actually, I watched another streamer, he's a retro game runner called Arco, and what he's very good at is, and I really sort of recommend this because I don't do this enough myself, but he like has these like verbal cues. Like he'll say like, I mean, whatever it is, right? But like 1, 2 loop-de-loo, like right at the beginning of each trick. And that like, that saying of what he's doing helps him execute these very difficult tricks perfectly. So I really think that like one thing that we could do, like just sort of like develop those habits, develop those like those little cues for yourself that like, you know, when you're using the doom, like, or something like that. I mean, I'm trying to think of like specific examples, right? But like develop like a visual cue, like, you know, like say to yourself, like, you know, wave 1, and then like do the rhythm of what it takes to do wave 1, wave 2. Like, I actually think that that's a strategy that could legitimately help you. It really is good. Oh, thank you very much. I'm not going to say your name, but J.A., I'm glad you enjoyed it. Hope you'll consider giving the channel a follow. I really do appreciate that, and I really love having a growing community. It really means a lot. We'll do some more real-time runs coming up in the next couple of days here. So yeah, it was really good getting a chance to interact with you. It really was. So anyway, like, again, giving yourself like some of those verbal cues. I actually tried to sneak that in there, but I really wanted to play it safe. Oh, Arcus, I'm sorry. Yep. Yeah, Arco is actually someone in our community. I'm getting them. Yep. Yeah, his name's Arcus, and he is really good at giving himself those verbal cues. I've never seen anything like it. And he makes these like very difficult tricks do early, and then he'll even praise himself when he does something well. And I think that that's something that like it maybe feels like weird to do on stream, right? Like, oh, good job, Warbeck, you timed that doom shroom perfectly, or good job, Warbeck, you used the squash, you know, you dug up the squash, you know, in time, and whatever else. But like I swear to God, like that stuff really matters. It really can make a difference. Is my doom gonna work? It's not. You needed to get on screen, you slowpoke. The doom did not. The extra doom, well, I mean, the doom did work. This is an important strategy, by the way. Put your first doom in this row, in this column, because the Gargantuar will always appear in rows 2 to 5. But there you go. Yeah, so it did work, and I did get, so it does work. And then what you do is you do like the 1-2 squasharoo, 1-2, you know, 1-2 squash then doom, like some sort of thing to like get that rhythm perfectly. If you squash the Gargantuar, you wait till he throws, use the doom shroom just as that next wave is appearing on screen, and sometimes you can even get a lot of extra value from that doom. But like again, the timing there is very specific, sort of like, actually ironically about our conversation about timing, but like having some sort of way, even if, you know, again, you don't have to say it out loud, but like having some sort of good mental rhythm of like what that looks like, I really think is very important to being a speedrunner in general. Like having those verbal cues that like correspond to a tight level of execution, I really think can make a massive difference. All right. So here we go, 1-2 squasharoo. So we do squash here, and you actually have to use this doom pretty quickly. Sometimes this guy likes to throw the imp a little too far, and if you're a little too late using your doom shroom, whoops, guilty. Then you can run into a major problem. So again, I had a really good time on that level in my PB, so it was going to be hard to keep up with, but overall that was a good level. And again, I'm 16 seconds ahead of my PB, but I only have about 2 seconds to save here, so I was like, if I can be about even, I knew I had a little time to save on Zomboss, maybe I could pull out a PB on this. Like, that's, you know, that's about it. Yep, so... Yep, no Garg will ever spawn in the top row on these levels. Never. Never once. Yep, so best possible time, by the way, 3:26:01. Just throwing that out there. 3:26:01. But again, I have 2 seconds to save on this level, and, you know, getting a really good 3 cycle is, you know, not the most common. Not the most common at all. What happens if I use the bottom 4 roof clears? Ooh, I actually don't. I'll bet the Garg would spawn in one of those rows. I'll bet it would override it. Because there are sometimes, right, like even on... column like you see them, if you use the lawnmowers on wave 19, you'll still get the final wave, or if you use them right before the huge wave, you'll still get them. But it would be really interesting. It would be very interesting. So what we do here is, rather than using our pumpkin strategy, there are so many magnetic zombies on this level that it is better for us to take the magnet plant. So it's, although even now, like, I mean, I do wonder, you know, if you wanted to play high risk, high reward, could you take the pumpkin? What would you take it in place of? That's sort of the even scarier sort of thing. So also the gloom will kill regular zombies before it gets eaten, but it will not kill Coneheads. But it will kill the regular Coneheads as it passes by. So very important to make sure that you always have a flower pot available, as well as potentially a sunflower available, just to make sure that these guys don't get eaten. So this is a great example of what I'm talking about. So again, make sure that flower pot is available. I might have used it a little too soon, but luckily he did slow down a little bit. Use a second one if you have to. It is totally worth it. And again, I knew I didn't need to waste one of my sunflowers there. I could place it down there. So Again, we do these 2 columns, but they are exposed. The second and the fourth row, by far, are the most vulnerable rows that we have right now. So now it's a balance of, all right, to what extent do you try to get magnets out, which I try to get at least 1 out right in the middle here, very, very early in the second flag. You just never know when those bucket heads are going to come. Try to get a doom out early. Again, huge difference right there. A huge difference. As a result, there were no Coneheads. And again, then how do you balance that with getting the next Gloom out? How do you balance that with the bungees that inevitably come? This guy you actually do have to slow down a little bit unless the magnet comes off cooldown, which he actually did in this case. So that's good. And again, now it's sort of a balance of, all right, where do I place some fumes versus where do I place, do I try to get an extra magnet or 2? Do I try to use another doom? So what I've actually decided that I really like on this level is basically doing like in every other, doing a doom on column 2 and column 4. This got a little scary. That got a little scary. I thought I had it back in time, but it was actually like a lot farther from being ready than I really thought. So that was pretty scary. Luckily, that guy was pretty slow as well. But what I like here, again, you can see what I was saying. You got to be prepared for this. Like, this is almost always going to happen, so it's important to make sure that you have either a squash or a doom ready to take care of that guy. Now, actually, I think I made it to the 9th wave without even realizing it. Again, I made the same mistake as before. Although this 9th wave was really nice to me. I actually didn't need a doom on it, so that's really good. I like this magnet placement because every row has 2 magnets that can protect it, and I have 2 extra squashes if shit really starts to hit the fan. And it's actually okay to do a magnet right here, believe it or not. This is a strategy I came up with like just in the last run or 2 that I really think has a lot of value, because if you have a magnet, look at that. That one got the bucket head right here. Like, the range is actually ridiculous. That 3-tile range is like really very, very far. And certainly anything that you get in the middle is also pretty well covered by that 6-column guy as well. So, all those things put together really sort of, I was feeling really good about this level at this point. Like, things were, things were looking up. Look at this. I even have like a 5th one. I'm like, you know what? I don't really need a fume at this point. I'll put down another bucket head. I'm worried about the bucket heads. I'm worried about the jack-in-the-boxes. If the jack-in-the-boxes get too close, these 6th-column magnets can really help. I really think they make a big deal. I unfortunately took a death there, but I thought that was going to be okay. And like a frickin' fool, I put the squash down there. Why was it like a frickin' fool, you said? Why, Warmack? Why? No! Bad dog. And then I really should have used this one in the middle. Oh! F! Warmack, you choked a gold. No! There's a 20% chance or so that you get a Garg before the final wave on this level. Maybe 25%. And I got it. I also knew, you saw right there, I had to use that Doom really early because I was not going to have the squash because I missed that second one, and luckily the Doom does get everybody. So that was actually a huge Doom and a true tribute to why you really need like 4 Dooms on this level. I used every single one of them, and yeah, and I really could have gotten away with just the one Doom, but that did not happen. And so now I'm like, oh god, I have 1 minute and 7 seconds to save. Now again, a minute, saving a minute on Zomboss is like, it's anyone's game here, but I'm only 17 seconds behind. It's still probably a 50-50 chance that I PB, so I'm like, this is gonna be okay. Like, we're gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. This was really funny. This kind of cracked me up a little bit. And this is Living Hell Part 3. Exactly right. The game has these things called melon pults. They exist. You're sometimes given them. There's maybe a, if I had to put a number to it, a 10-15% probability that you get one. It also did give me a nice number of jalapenos, though, so I can't totally complain, but the melon count is not good. Not looking so good. And it's actually kind of hard now, because these guys really don't have a lot of, and I couldn't even, like, really use this, so I do, you know, it is important to try to use the dooms. You can see alternating dooms with the, that ice cream is probably a waste. I probably didn't need to do that, although it did let me use one more jalapeno. Again, it's important to use all the jalapenos. Yeah, so wow, I got a melon pult. They do exist. After literally like 20 spawns or something like that, I finally got one. Yep, so the zombies have glasses because I entered a code called Future. And one, it's cool, but two, it actually does help on a couple of the levels because it makes the zombies eat the garlic faster, which seems like a strange mechanic to take advantage of, but is one that is definitely very helpful. So I actually got a fast second flag, so at this point I'm like, alright, 3 cycle right is almost certainly not happening. Like, the chances have just got to be, like, ridiculously low, so I'm like, okay, if I kind of, like, you know, do as much damage as I can here, you know, make sure my ice shrooms, I'm not, like, demanipulating them too much, you know, maybe I can get, like, a fast 4 cycle instead of a 3 cycle, you know. But what you don't want to do, sometimes Zomboss has, like, what his troll cycle. We call him Dr. Troll Boss because that's really what he is. But sometimes you'll notice his hit points are sort of right in the, like, 45 to 50% gone level. And sometimes what he does is he then gives you a really bad phase after that happens. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, crap. Did I just do that? Did I just do that? Gargantuars, Bungees in the middle of the level. Then he came down. He came down. I don't know why he came. He shouldn't have come down. Why did he come down? I also didn't have, like, many instants whatsoever, so I had to, like, really risk this one. So I waited till, like, the last possible second. And at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm not getting a 3 cycle, but you know what? If I just let him go, right? Let him go, maybe I get a fast enough 4 cycle, right? Like, I get a 4 cycle that's in the, like, you know, maybe he takes 30 seconds, 40 seconds to come down. I get a couple of jalapenos. Oh, jalapenos. Oh. Right. Yeah, about those. 326 felt on the table till about now. I got no melon pults. I didn't get the jalapenos when I needed to. I kind of got the hell cycle, the troll cycle. And now Dr. Zomboss is not coming down. I have to waste all of these ice shrooms just so that I don't take a death. Right, let's keep in mind, I could take a death. I could. Now, obviously, I have jalapenos and stuff that would make that unlikely. But now, not only that, I have guards. I have everything in every possible row. And I didn't even know which jalapeno to use first. Like, both of these rows are a huge problem. And now I have no firepower left because I lost it all to the stupid, the stupid football zombies. These, you know, these waves haven't been really doing anything. Am I even going to get a 4 cycle? Am I even going to get the 4 cycle? Don't tell me. Oh, don't tell me. Please don't tell me. Please. Okay. Okay, and we got the 4 cycle. So anyway, I know this is a tutorial, not me being dramatic about my lack of PB. I did get a 327, by the way. So that felt pretty good. But again, Zomboss is, you know, there is RNG into, you know, to it. It's really important to use your jalapenos to, like, clear out the rows at the beginning of Zomboss. Use those jalapenos as soon as you possibly can. always save one if he gives you the ice ball. Always try to save at least one ice shroom for the beginning of the wave, and then one more ice shroom if he uses the fireball. I did not get a PB here. Again, I'm kind of like hovering through at this point, but we had some real ups and downs. So this was, it felt so close. We had a 50-second lead, 50-second behind, back ahead, 5-9 mistake, and then Zomboss. And we were more likely to get it than not. Yeah, 2-3, nasty. 2-3 was a nasty level. 2-7 was very good, given that we had... we had the Warmack 4 stack on 5-6. All right, so yeah, let's sort of go through like the run start to finish and what was good and what was bad. First 3 levels were actually pretty darn good. I really think, again, a pretty good demonstration of how those should be played under like ideal circumstances. 1-6 was kind of bad. I got like a lot of vaulters and didn't get great value out of my lawnmowers, but that sometimes happens. My gold split there is very ridiculous. 1-7, in my opinion, was one of the strongest executed levels in the entire run, and it wasn't even a gold split. It was a good balance of like, what do I keep? How do I plant sunflowers? How do I prioritize the firepower? When do I use the cherries? How do I, prepare for the final wave? All that stuff went really well in 1-7. So 1-7 was an excellent example of how I think the day levels should be played. And moving on to the night, 2-3 was very, very trolly. Bad final wave. Didn't get the early screen door zombie. Nasty. 2-6, I got the Warmack 4 stack, which is almost impossible to get on 2-6. Almost impossible. And I didn't even get a great final wave or anything like that to boot. But 2-7, I got the A1 5 stack, and nonetheless still got a pretty good time. Again, it was a good balance of I didn't get mega trolled early, but I got prepared with enough early scaredies and all that stuff that it felt pretty good. 2-10 also, I think, went pretty well. That was a good example of 2-10. 3-1, again, I was up against a global gold, not great. 3-2, excellent example of how to play the early roof levels in particular. Everything went right, and I don't know if it was a global gold. I don't think it was, but I got a really, really great gold on that level, so definitely go check that one out. Rest of it was kind of blah. 4-2, I felt like I did a good job. Again, a nice balance. 4-8 was also excellent. Coupled with some nice RNG and a good final wave. 4-7, I got massacred by making some slight mistakes with the Doom and the squash placement, sort of coupled with getting a million diggers and a million bucket heads in the wrong place at the wrong time. I also had that horrible mistake in 4-5 that cost 20 or 25 seconds, and I missed the Doom in 4-6, which cost 10 or 15 seconds. So we're talking about all these time saves and time loss and bad luck. I needed 1 or 2 little things to go right this run, and I think it would have been a masterpiece. 5-2, I talked about a lot of the mistakes that I made there, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. 5-4 was very good, but I still think can be improved a little bit further. I'll listen to some of the commentary there. 5-5, I think I did a good job until waves 18 and 19, and then the final wave was pretty good based on what I had at that point, or at least it was okay. And then again, I did get a gold on 5-6. 5-6 was a good example of the late roof levels and how those should be played. 5-9 was an excellent example of how 5-9 should be played until I planted that squash. That was so dumb. So dumb. 20 or 30 seconds there alone. And then Zomboss, what can you do? I got no melon pulse. I didn't get a lot of jalapenos at the end. I couldn't make good use of the ice shrooms. I had a lot of zombies, and I couldn't kill the zombies very fast, and couldn't get them to do damage, and my plants to do damage to Zomboss. So, there was a lot that went not great about Zomboss, but that said, I feel really good that this tutorial and this demonstration was a demonstration of, things that you can do very well. Things that you can do very well, despite the RNG. Things that can go very wrong because of RNG, things that can go wrong because you make stupid mistakes, and how to react to some of those mistakes even when you do make them. Because that a lot of what this run is about is just that. You can take deaths, and you can have major time losses on levels if you don't know how to react to your mistakes very well. No single mistake should cost you more than 30 seconds in the run, and most big mistakes don't cost you any more than 10 or 15, but all those little mistakes can definitely add up. I hope I talked enough about like some of the little stuff that we do to like really optimize the 50% rule, and really try to keep things ahead, how to manipulate RNG a little bit, what to look out for in some of the levels, how to pick your plants efficiently, all those things that we do, some of the RNG factors that you can, try to incorporate. We look into all those things. And so it really is a great run. And I hope that as a result, this was a demonstration of how like a 225 could be achieved, maybe even a 224. And I'm being serious about that like, were it not for, and a couple of the mistakes and a couple of the bad bouts of RNG, and plus my reaction to those, I really think that this could have been like a not only a PB, but like a really quality run and a good demonstration, which again, in a tutorial, like you don't want necessarily everything going right all the time, but you don't want everything going wrong all the time. So I think this tutorial kind of provides a good balance of that. So again, if you haven't already, I'd appreciate, any subscriptions or any, follows of the channel that you like. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for making it to the end of it. I really hope you enjoyed the content. This is sort of the latest and greatest. Can I say this will be my last tutorial ever? No, but can I say that this is sort of a good demonstration of some of the improvements that we've made, both in execution and in strategy over the last, 6 or 7 months since I had the last tutorial? Definitely. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you'll consider, following, supporting the channel, sharing it with your friends, and that you did enjoy the content. So, till next time, thank you, my friends. Take care, and we'll talk to you later.